Welcome, friends, to another gentle journey through the blocky world of Minecraft. Tonight, we'll be exploring 150 obscure facts about the game details tucked away in its code, secrets hidden in mobs, mechanics that many players never notice. From rare creatures wandering quietly in forgotten biomes to unusual drops, behaviors, and history, each fact has been chosen to spark curiosity while easing your mind toward rest. So find a cozy spot, perhaps wrap yourself in a blanket, and let the steady rhythm of storytelling guide you into calm. With each fact, we'll slow down, taking our time until the outside world feels far away. If you enjoy these bedtime adventures, don't forget to subscribe. It helps our little community of dreamers grow. And as always, I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight? One obscure fact about Minecraft is that Endermen were not originally designed to pick up blocks. In the early stages of their development, they were envisioned as tall, shadowy figures that simply teleported and stalked players. It was only later that developers gave them the ability to lift and place blocks, turning them into one of the few mobs able to interact directly with the world. This change made them unsettling, as players could wake up to find their carefully placed dirt or sand mysteriously moved. While harmless in small amounts, the behavior hinted at intelligence and gave rise to fan theories about Endermen having their own motives. The mechanic became iconic, cementing Endermen as more than just hostile mobs. They were beings that bent the rules of the game itself. Their rare and strange ability continues to make them feel alien, leaving many players unsettled even after years of familiarity. A lesser-known fact is that Minecraft's clouds are not actually made of separate blocks, even though they look that way. Instead, they are rendered as flat, semi-transparent textures that slowly drift across the sky. This illusion creates the blocky aesthetic players expect, but technically, the clouds are not entities or blocks at all. This has led to interesting quirks. Players cannot climb to reach them in survival mode, nor can they interact with them like normal blocks. However, mods and creative builds often simulate touching the clouds by placing blocks at the same height, giving the appearance of floating within them. The simplicity of the system hides behind the game's sense of wonder, making many assume clouds are more complicated than they truly are. It is a reminder of how Minecraft often blends simple programming tricks with visual charm, creating a world that feels deeper than the sum of its parts. Another obscure detail lies in the sounds of ghasts. Many players know their eerie cries echo across the nether, but few realize that the audio clips come from something very ordinary: the sound of a cat waking up. Developer C418, who composed Minecraft's original soundtrack and sound effects, recorded his cat making small noises, then distorted and stretched them. The result was the ghast's strange, unsettling wails. Knowing that these terrifying sounds come from a house pet adds a layer of humor to an otherwise frightening mob. It also highlights Minecraft's quirky approach to sound design, where everyday noises become part of a fantastical universe. Players often find themselves surprised to learn this fact, as it transforms how they hear the nether. What was once terrifying becomes oddly endearing. Proof that creativity often springs from the simplest, most unexpected sources, like a cat yawning and stretching in the comfort of a quiet room. Few players know that the original concept for the creeper came from a coding mistake. Marcus Persson, better known as Notch, accidentally inverted the dimensions while creating a model for a pig. The result was a tall, thin figure with an unusual stance. Rather than discard the mistake, he adapted it into a new mob design. Eventually, the creature became the creeper, one of the most iconic symbols of Minecraft. Its green skin and explosive attack were added later, solidifying its role as both menace and mascot. This happy accident shaped the identity of the entire game, showing how mistakes can become innovations. The creeper's origins and error remain one of the most obscure yet fascinating pieces of Minecraft history. It reminds us that creativity often thrives on accidents, and sometimes the most memorable ideas are born not from careful planning but from unexpected glitches along the way. One obscure quirk in Minecraft is the ability for snow golems to leave trails of snow behind them, but only under certain conditions. When players craft these creatures by stacking snow blocks and topping them with a carved pumpkin, the golem becomes a walking snow machine. However, their snowy paths only appear in biomes or dimensions where snow is allowed to generate naturally. In the Nether or in warmer biomes, they wander without leaving traces, silently reminding players of how environmental rules affect mob behavior. This mechanic adds depth to what could have been a simple novelty mob. Snow golems are not just decorative, they interact with the world in ways that reflect climate. This detail often surprises players who experiment with moving their snow golems between regions. It is one of those small, obscure touches that makes the Minecraft world feel dynamic and alive, rewarding curiosity with little discoveries hidden in plain sight. Another fascinating, lesser-known fact is that villagers once had a very different appearance. In early versions, their noses were exaggerated to the point of caricature, and their arms were permanently crossed in front of them. They were seen as strange, almost alien creatures, with few roles other than wandering aimlessly. Over time, villagers gained professions, trading systems, and more personality. Their designs were refined, but the iconic long nose and crossed arms remained. This unusual look sparked endless jokes and memes in the Minecraft community, cementing villagers as both beloved and mocked. Few players realized just how limited they were at first, almost like placeholder models waiting for more depth. Their evolution from obscure oddities to vital parts of survival worlds shows how Minecraft grew over time. What started as a simple experiment became a foundation of gameplay, with villagers now serving as essential partners in trading and farming economies. An obscure fact about Minecraft's mechanics is that the moon actually cycles through different phases, just like in real life. While many players notice the square moon rising and falling, fewer pay attention to the waxing and waning shapes it goes through. These phases are not just cosmetic, they influence gameplay in subtle ways. For example, the number of slimes that spawn in swamps is tied to the moon's cycle, with full moons bringing more activity. This detail often goes unnoticed, as players rarely track the sky with such precision, yet once discovered, it adds an extra layer of immersion. The developers included this quiet feature as a nod to realism, deepening the world without drawing too much attention to it. It is one of those hidden systems that makes Minecraft feel larger than it is, proving that even the night sky has secrets waiting to be understood by observant explorers. An obscure detail many players overlook is that wolves in Minecraft tilt their heads when you feed them bones. This charming behavior was added to mimic the way real dogs cock their heads when curious or excited. It serves no mechanical purpose, yet it quickly became one of the most endearing animations in the game. The tilt is subtle, lasting only a moment, but it makes the wolves feel more lifelike, as though they are truly reacting to the player. Wolves were among the earliest tameable companions, and this small detail added a sense of bond and personality. Many players recall the first time they saw it as a delightful surprise, transforming wolves from simple mobs into believable pets. It is a reminder that Minecraft is filled with tiny flourishes designed not to change gameplay but to deepen immersion and charm, hidden rewards for those who slow down and observe. Another obscure fact is that when skeletons shoot arrows into boats or minecarts, the projectiles remain lodged visibly in them. This strange quirk makes boats and minecarts appear riddled with arrows after battles. While the arrows eventually disappear, their temporary presence creates amusing scenes, like war-torn vehicles drifting along rivers. It is a mechanic that players rarely notice, since skeleton battles usually happen on land rather than water. Yet when discovered, it feels like an Easter egg, a reminder that even inanimate objects in Minecraft can interact with combat systems in surprising ways. This effect also extends to players, as arrows remain stuck visually until they fade, further blurring the line between entity and environment. Such obscure quirks bring humor and storytelling opportunities, giving even simple objects like boats personality. They highlight the unexpected depth of Minecraft systems, where everything, no matter how small, has the potential for strange interactions. Few players realize that squids once had a bug that caused them to swim backward. In early versions of the game, their movement coding was flawed, leading to the odd appearance of squids gliding in reverse through water. This glitch became somewhat of a legend, as players laughed at the strange, unnatural behavior. Eventually, it was fixed, and squids were given smoother, more believable swimming animations. Yet for those who experienced it, the memory remains a quirky piece of Minecraft history. It shows how early versions of the game often had unpolished elements that players came to love anyway. The backward squid became a symbol of the game's charm, proof that imperfection could create delight. Many fans still reference this obscure fact when talking about the evolution of Minecraft, remembering a time when even the oceans were filled with oddities. It is a reminder of how far the game has come. Another hidden gem is that silverfish, one of the more frustrating hostile mobs, can actually hide inside stone blocks. Only certain types of stone-infested variants can contain them, but players often do not realize this until they break the block and the tiny insect scurries out. The obscurity lies in how indistinguishable infested stone looks compared to normal stone, leaving players with no visual clue until it is too late. This mechanic makes strongholds particularly eerie, as players mining their way through often trigger sudden infestations. The effect is subtle but terrifying, as a single mined block can lead to an ambush of silverfish. For many, their first encounter is unforgettable, mixing shock with confusion. This design adds suspense and mystery to exploration, proving that even stone itself can hide danger. The obscure nature of infested blocks has made silverfish legendary, tiny terrors lurking in the walls of Minecraft's dungeons. An obscure fact about biomes is that deserts can generate with wells, simple sandstone structures containing a small pool of water. These desert wells serve no practical purpose, offering neither loot nor function, yet they stand quietly as rare landmarks. Their rarity and mystery have fascinated players for years, with many speculating about hidden meanings. Some believe they were meant as navigation markers, while others view them as abandoned remnants of ancient civilizations. In truth, they are decorative features, included to add variety to the otherwise barren landscape. Their obscurity lies in their lack of explanation, as most world structures have some kind of clear role. Desert wells simply exist, silent monuments in the sands. For explorers who stumble upon them, they can feel strangely significant, as if they are secrets waiting to be uncovered. Their quiet presence adds depth to the desert, turning emptiness into something contemplative. One quirky but obscure feature is that ocelots used to be the only way to obtain cats in Minecraft. In older versions, players had to find ocelots in jungle biomes and tame them with fish, after which they transformed into domestic cats. This mechanic was eventually changed, with cats being given their own spawning rules in villages. Today, ocelots remain wild creatures that cannot be fully tamed, only trusted to the point where they no longer flee from players. The original system made jungle exploration more valuable, as cats could only be found through ocelot encounters. Many players who began in those older versions still remember the thrill of taming their first ocelot and watching it shift into a striped or solid-colored cat. The change separated the two species, but the obscure history of their connection remains a fascinating reminder of how Minecraft's mobs evolve over time. A particularly obscure mechanic involves zombie piglins, formerly known as zombie pigmen. They are neutral by default, ignoring the player unless attacked, but when provoked, their entire group becomes hostile. The obscure part lies in the way their aggression works across long distances. Once angered, nearby piglins can pass the hostility to others, creating a chain reaction. This means a careless swing of a sword can quickly turn an entire nether fortress into chaos. Players often learn this the hard way, leading to frantic escapes across lava lakes. The chain aggression mechanic is subtle, but it makes zombie piglins feel more like a society than individuals, emphasizing the danger of disturbing them. Their rarity is not in numbers, but in the uniqueness of their behavior compared to other mobs. This obscure fact explains why encounters with them feel so overwhelming, turning one small mistake into an unforgettable struggle. An obscure piece of Minecraft's history is that furnaces were once the only way to gain experience orbs outside of combat. When items such as ores were smelted, players would receive small amounts of experience upon collecting the finished product. This subtle mechanic meant that mining and smelting became more than just resource gathering. They were tied to progression. Over time, more methods of earning experience were added, from breeding animals to fishing, but the furnace connection remained. It is obscure because many newer players do not realize smelting was once one of the primary ways to gain levels. The mechanic encouraged players to build automated smelting systems, transforming humble furnaces into experience farms. This early design choice quietly influenced the rise of automation in Minecraft, showing how even simple mechanics can shape the creativity of the community. The furnace's role as both tool and teacher is often overlooked. Another obscure fact involves the Wither boss, which has a unique property not shared by any other mob. It is immune to almost all projectiles. Arrows, for example, simply bounce off once the Wither has reached half health, forcing players to rely on melee attacks or explosive strategies. This immunity adds difficulty, but it also makes the fight feel distinct from other encounters. Few players notice the exact timing of the change, as it happens mid-battle and is overshadowed by chaos. The design pushes players out of comfort zones, forcing adaptation. This obscure detail explains why bows feel unusually weak during the Wither fight, a surprise that can cost unprepared adventurers dearly. By tying resistance to a health threshold, the game creates tension, escalating the fight in a way that feels dynamic. It is a small but powerful mechanic that makes the Wither more than just another boss. One hidden quirk is that music discs in Minecraft can only be obtained under specific conditions. Most of them drop when a skeleton's arrow kills a creeper. This mechanic is obscure because it is so unusual. The player must manipulate two hostile mobs to fight each other. It transforms the process of collecting music into a little puzzle, requiring patience and timing. Many players stumble upon this by accident, noticing a disc among a creeper's drops after a chaotic battle. The system was designed to make music discs feel special, rare rewards, rather than ordinary loot. Over the years, more discs have been added, expanding the soundtrack hidden within the game. Yet the method of acquiring them remains charmingly odd, tying music to combat in a way no one expects. This obscure fact reveals Minecraft's playful side, where even the simple joy of listening to music carries a story. An obscure mechanic involves wolves attacking skeletons on sight. While most mobs ignore one another, wolves are coded to treat skeletons as enemies. This detail often surprises players, especially when tamed wolves rush into battle against skeleton archers without prompting. The behavior was inspired by the idea that wolves, as loyal companions, would naturally defend players against one of the earliest threats in the game. It adds realism, as wolves act like guard dogs rather than passive pets. This obscure fact also creates tactical possibilities, allowing players to use packs of wolves to counter ranged attacks. It is one of those small design choices that adds personality to mobs, making wolves feel protective and alive. Their instinctive hostility towards skeletons tells a tiny story each time it happens, reminding players that Minecraft's creatures have relationships and instincts beyond what the player commands. Another lesser-known detail is that strongholds are generated before almost everything else in a Minecraft world. During world creation, the game places strongholds first, then builds terrain and biomes around them. This obscure ordering ensures that strongholds exist in every world, hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Because of this system, strongholds can sometimes generate in unusual locations, such as beneath villages, oceans, or even ravines. Their pre-placement also explains why they feel so carefully hidden yet perfectly placed, as if the world grew around them. Many players assume strongholds are generated later, like dungeons or temples, but in truth they are foundational. This obscure fact adds a sense of destiny to world creation, as though the end portal always existed, waiting for the player to eventually uncover it. It deepens the lore, turning strongholds into timeless relics rather than random structures. Few players realize that villagers once made unintelligible murmurs before they had their distinctive sounds. Early prototypes used placeholder audio, leading to villagers that were eerily silent or made odd noises without character. The now iconic sounds were added to give villagers personality, inspired partly by the idea of mumbling neighbors. This obscure change transformed them from lifeless figures into quirky characters, instantly recognizable by sound alone. Their voices became part of Minecraft's culture, endlessly imitated and parodied by fans. What makes this fact obscure is how easily the memory of silent villagers is forgotten, buried under years of updates. For players who remember, it marks a turning point when villagers went from background scenery to central parts of the game's charm. Their voices gave them life, proving that sound can be as transformative as any new mechanic. The final obscure fact in this section is that bedrock, the unbreakable block at the bottom of the world, was once breakable through bugs and glitches. In early versions, certain exploits involving pistons or duplication tricks allowed players to destroy or even remove bedrock. This was not intentional, but adventurous players delighted in reaching the void, a dark, endless space beneath the world. Developers eventually patched these exploits, making bedrock truly indestructible in survival mode. However, the memory of breakable bedrock lingers as a piece of obscure history, remembered fondly by players who experimented in those days. It highlights how Minecraft's open design often encouraged players to push boundaries, sometimes literally breaking the game. Bedrock's transition from buggy block to absolute barrier reflects the evolving stability of the game, but its obscure past reminds us that even the strongest rules once had cracks. An obscure fact about end portals is that their frames can generate with Eyes of Ender already placed. While most strongholds contain empty frames, there is a small chance for some to hold 1, 2, or more eyes pre-filled. In rare cases, an entire portal may generate completely ready to use, though the odds are astronomically low. This tiny detail makes every stronghold feel a little different, as though fate itself has prepared the way for the player. Most adventurers will never stumble upon a fully completed portal, making it one of the rarest natural features in Minecraft. The possibility, however, keeps exploration exciting. Each new stronghold carries a sense of mystery. Will the frames be empty, or will the portal already glow with the gateway to the end? This obscure mechanic proves that even the most critical structures have layers of randomness, keeping discoveries surprising. Another obscure feature involves the fishing mechanic. While most players know fishing can yield fish or treasure items, few realize that the game classifies catches into 3 distinct categories: fish, junk, and treasure. The treasure category includes rare items like enchanted books, name tags, or even bows, making fishing unexpectedly valuable. What is obscure is the way enchantments such as Luck of the Sea dramatically shift probabilities, turning fishing from a simple food-gathering task into a treasure hunt. For many, the first time pulling up an enchanted book feels magical, as though the sea itself gifted a reward. This subtle system adds depth to a calm pastime, transforming idle moments into opportunities for discovery. Many players fish simply for relaxation, never realizing the hidden mechanics beneath the surface. Fishing embodies Minecraft's charm, mundane actions that conceal layers of chance and surprise for those who look closely. Few players realize that the Nether was not part of the original plan for Minecraft, but began as an experimental idea called Hell. Early prototypes used that name before being changed to the Nether, partly to soften the tone and broaden appeal. The Nether introduced concepts that were obscure at the time, such as unique blocks like netherrack that burned endlessly, and biomes that broke away from the overworld's natural feel. What makes this history obscure is how quickly it transformed from a small experiment into one of Minecraft's defining dimensions. Today, the Nether update has expanded it into a diverse world of biomes, creatures, and treasures, but its roots lie in something far simpler. Remembering its original name and purpose is like glimpsing a hidden layer of Minecraft's past, reminding players that even the grandest features often begin as rough sketches and daring experiments. Another obscure detail lies in the way compasses behave in the Nether in the end. In the overworld, a compass points reliably toward the world spawn, guiding players home. But in other dimensions, compasses spin wildly, refusing to settle. This quirk confuses new players, but it was intentionally designed to reinforce the idea that these realms are alien and disconnected from normal rules. It adds tension to exploration, as players cannot rely on the tools they know. The only way to make compasses useful in other dimensions is by crafting a lodestone, which anchors their direction to a chosen point. This mechanic is obscure because many players never use lodestones, making compasses in the Nether or End seem permanently broken. In truth, they are reminders that each dimension has its own laws. The spinning compass is a subtle, poetic detail, underscoring the disorientation of leaving the familiar behind. An obscure quirk about cauldrons is that they can hold dyed water in the Bedrock edition of Minecraft, something impossible in the Java version. Players can use cauldrons to dye water with different colors, then apply that water to dye leather armor. This mechanic feels natural, but it is surprisingly specific to one edition of the game, leading to confusion when players switch versions. The cauldron's role as a tool for potion brewing is already minor, making its hidden potential even more obscure. Many overlook cauldrons entirely, using them only for decoration. Yet, in Bedrock, they quietly expand customization, turning them into tools of creativity. This obscure fact shows how different editions of Minecraft often diverge in subtle but significant ways, creating two slightly different worlds under the same name. For players who know both, cauldrons become symbols of hidden differences, small reminders of Minecraft's complexity. Another hidden gem of the game is that parrots can be killed if fed cookies. Unlike most mobs that accept food as a friendly act, parrots react fatally to cookies, referencing the real-life toxicity of chocolate for birds. This obscure mechanic shocks many players the first time they discover it, as the expectation is that food heals or tames. Instead, it serves as a subtle educational detail, teaching a real-world lesson through gameplay. The inclusion was intentional, a way to weave knowledge into fun while still keeping Minecraft's quirky charm. While players quickly learn to tame parrots with seeds instead, the cookie fact lingers as a strange, unforgettable piece of trivia. It highlights Mojang's occasional use of obscure mechanics to add depth and meaning, reminding players that even light-hearted features can carry real-world truths. The parrot's vulnerability is obscure, memorable, and surprisingly educational all at once. A final obscure detail in this section involves skeleton horses. While they are rare mounts in themselves, one lesser-known property is that they do not drown underwater. Unlike regular horses, which cannot survive long beneath the surface, skeleton horses can walk along the seafloor indefinitely. This obscure mechanic makes them uniquely suited for aquatic exploration, though few players ever take advantage of it. The ability feels almost mythic, as though these eerie creatures are tied to ancient secrets of the deep. Their rarity already makes them treasures, but this hidden property elevates them further. For players who experiment or stumble across it, the discovery feels magical, turning a skeletal steed into a ghostly submarine. It is one of those quiet features that few know, yet once discovered, it becomes unforgettable. Skeleton horses are reminders that Minecraft is filled with surprises, even in mobs that seem familiar. A curious and obscure fact involves the wandering trader. While players often dismiss this mob as annoying, with llamas that spit and trades that seem overpriced, there is a subtle charm hidden in its design. The trader can sometimes offer items that are otherwise unobtainable early in the game, such as saplings from distant biomes or coral blocks. This mechanic makes the trader a bridge between regions, giving access to things a player may never encounter otherwise. Another obscure aspect is that the trader always spawns near the player, no matter how remote their location. This almost magical quality makes it feel as if the trader follows you, carrying the world's goods on their back. Though many players overlook them, wandering traders are reminders that chance encounters can sometimes bring opportunities, even if they arrive wrapped in llamas and strange prices. An obscure detail about the snow golem is that it can be altered with shears. When first built, snow golems wear a pumpkin as a head, but using shears removes the pumpkin to reveal a simple, almost comical face underneath. This transformation is obscure because most players assume the pumpkin is permanent, never thinking to experiment with tools on such a creature. The snow golem itself is already unusual, a mob that leaves snowy trails behind and throws snowballs as its only form of attack. The ability to alter its appearance adds another layer of charm, turning a quirky creature into a personalized companion. Few players take the time to build them, and fewer still discover their hidden feature. but those who do are rewarded with a smiley friend who brings joy even in the harshest winter biomes, proving once again that Minecraft thrives on little secrets. Another hidden mechanic lies with villagers and their workstations. Many players know that villagers choose professions based on the workstation placed nearby, such as a lectern for librarians or a composter for farmers. What is obscure is that villagers can change professions repeatedly until they are locked by trading. This means a single villager can cycle through many possible jobs, giving the player control over the trades they eventually offer. The system creates strategy where there might have been none, allowing players to craft entire economies. Another obscure detail is that villagers gossip with each other, sharing information about the player's behavior, whether kind or cruel. This hidden system means that villagers' opinions are not individual but communal, creating the illusion of a society with memory. These layers of design go unnoticed by many players, yet they make villages feel alive, bustling with unseen conversations and evolving trades. Few know that hostile mobs can spawn holding rare items, creating unexpected moments of surprise. Zombies, for example, have a small chance of spawning with tools, armor, or even carrots and potatoes. Skeletons may spawn with enchanted bows, while spiders sometimes carry invisible potion effects. The obscure twist is that these items are not just for decoration. Sometimes the mob will drop them upon defeat, giving the player an unexpected gift. The sight of a zombie shuffling forward in gleaming golden armor feels both strange and thrilling, reminding players that chance governs much of Minecraft's world. Even rarer are mobs that spawn with pumpkins or jack-o'-lanterns on their heads during Halloween season, a hidden seasonal feature that many players never see. These oddities make each battle unpredictable, weaving hidden layers of rarity into encounters that might otherwise feel routine. An obscure but delightful fact concerns dolphins and their interaction with dropped items. Dolphins will occasionally play with objects floating in the water, nudging them around in a way that seems playful and alive. This mechanic adds personality to these oceanic creatures, making them feel more like real animals. The obscure aspect is that dolphins can also guide players to hidden treasures. Feeding a dolphin raw fish causes it to swim toward the nearest buried treasure chest, shipwreck, or ruins. Many players overlook this ability, never realizing that dolphins are natural guides to wealth beneath the waves. Their joyful nature, combined with this hidden mechanic, makes them one of the most unique mobs in Minecraft. They embody both fun and utility, blending whimsy with practical exploration. The ocean feels less empty with dolphins leaping and playing, their obscure abilities waiting to be discovered. Another obscure feature involves husks, the desert variant of zombies. Unlike their standard counterparts, husks do not burn in sunlight, which surprises many new players. This unique property makes them a constant threat in deserts, even during the day. Beyond that, husks also inflict the hunger effect when they attack, a detail that adds difficulty to encounters. What is obscure is the symbolism. Husks embody the harshness of the desert, endless hunger, and survival under the burning sunday. They may look similar to zombies, but their mechanics make them one of the most dangerous common mobs in their biome. Many players never pay attention to these details, lumping husks with zombies, yet they carry distinct behaviors that set them apart. In this way, husks are an example of Minecraft's tendency to hide depth in what at first seems like a simple reskin, rewarding careful observation. A final obscure fact in this section involves the illusioner, a mob hidden in Minecraft's code that does not spawn naturally in survival. The illusioner is a type of illager equipped with a bow and magical powers. It can cast spells to blind players and create duplicates of itself, making combat disorienting and unique. However, it exists only through commands, never appearing in the wild. This makes the Illusioner one of the most obscure entities in the entire game, a secret mob many players have never encountered. Its presence suggests experiments with mechanics that were never fully developed, leaving behind a ghost of what might have been. For those who summon it, the Illusioner feels almost like forbidden knowledge, a glimpse into alternate paths Minecraft could have taken. Its obscurity lies not only in its mechanics but in its existence outside the regular flow of the game. One obscure fact about witches is that they can heal themselves during battle. Unlike most hostile mobs that rely solely on direct attacks, witches use potions strategically, drinking healing or fire resistance potions when threatened. They can even drink water-breathing potions if submerged. This makes them surprisingly resilient compared to other foes. The obscure detail here is that their potion choices are reactive. They read the situation and respond accordingly, which gives them a sense of intelligence not seen in many other mobs. For new players, this can feel shocking, as they expect quick victory, but instead find themselves in a drawn-out fight. Witches stand out as one of the few mobs that actively adapt, making them dangerous despite their modest appearance. Their unique mechanics often go unnoticed until a battle reveals just how unpredictable they can be. An obscure feature of slimes lies in their spawning conditions. While many players encounter them randomly, their actual mechanics are far more complex. Slimes only spawn in specific chunks called slime chunks, areas chosen through hidden calculations when the world is generated. They also appear in swamp biomes under very precise conditions, such as during certain phases of the moon. These obscure details make farming slimes a task of research and patience, not simply chance. Many players go years without understanding why slimes seem so inconsistent, never realizing the underlying system. The slime's rarity contrasts with its usefulness, as slime balls are essential for sticky pistons and leads. This makes slimes both frustrating and rewarding, embodying Minecraft's tendency to hide essential mechanics behind seemingly random events. Discovering slime chunks feels like unlocking a secret, an obscure layer of the world that suddenly changes how you see swamps and caves. Another obscure discovery lies in the behavior of zombified piglins. Unlike most hostile mobs, they remain neutral until provoked. What is obscure is the way their aggression spreads. When one is attacked, nearby piglins immediately become hostile, creating a swarm effect. Even more obscure is that they retain memory of this aggression for a surprisingly long time. Players who strike one and flee often find that piglins remain angry even minutes later, ready to chase at the next encounter. This behavior makes the Nether feel more dangerous, as angering piglins carries consequences that last. For players unaware of this mechanic, their first accidental hit can turn exploration into chaos. The obscure detail highlights how Minecraft encourages respect for its creatures, rewarding patience and caution. Piglins may seem harmless until provoked, but once angered, they embody the relentless hostility of the Nether itself. An obscure and fascinating feature is that skeletons and strays can shoot each other during combat, accidentally triggering fights among themselves. If one skeleton's arrow hits another, the struck skeleton retaliates, leading to mob-on-mob battles. This mechanic extends beyond skeletons to many hostile mobs, including zombies and spiders, creating scenarios where the player can simply step aside and watch enemies defeat each other. The obscure beauty of this feature is that it gives Minecraft battles a chaotic, unpredictable edge. It also allows clever players to take advantage of the system, turning enemies against each other. Watching two skeletons duel under the moonlight feels cinematic, as though the world itself contains unscripted stories. These obscure interactions remind players that Minecraft is not just about survival, but about witnessing emergent moments where simple mechanics combine into memorable, unplanned events. Few players realize that squids once had a quirk in older versions of the game where they could swim backward as easily as forward, ignoring typical movement rules. This obscure behavior was later refined, but it lingers in the memory of early players who witnessed these odd, almost glitchy creatures drifting through the water in strange patterns. Squids remain simple mobs, yet their ability to squirt ink when attacked adds personality. Another obscure fact is that squids can suffocate when stranded on land, unlike newer aquatic mobs such as dolphins or guardians that have unique survival traits. Squids may seem mundane compared to other creatures, but their history of quirks and hidden details makes them quietly fascinating. They represent how even the most common mobs in Minecraft carry obscure stories, small details tucked away that reward players who pay attention to their subtle behaviors. An obscure detail about Ravagers, the massive beasts used during raids, is that they fear rabbits. Despite their enormous size and destructive power, a single rabbit hopping nearby causes a Ravager to shy away. This strange behavior feels humorous, almost cartoonish, but it is coded into their mechanics. The obscure fact highlights Minecraft's whimsical side, where even terrifying mobs have odd vulnerabilities. Ravagers, capable of tearing through crops and attacking villagers, become comical when reduced to nervous glances at tiny bunnies. Few players ever see this interaction, as raids rarely intersect with rabbit habitats, making it a hidden joke waiting to be discovered. It is moments like these that give Minecraft personality beyond survival and building quiet, absurd details that make the world feel alive. Ravagers fearing rabbits stands as one of the most obscure and delightful quirks hidden in the game. Finally, an obscure mechanic involves Drowned holding tridents. While Drowned can spawn with tridents, the actual chance of one dropping its weapon is remarkably low, often less than 10% without enchantments. Many players assume that killing Drowned guarantees tridents, only to be disappointed after long hunts. The obscure detail is that the looting enchantment significantly improves this chance, turning trident farming into a long but achievable task. Another hidden layer is that tridents themselves are one of the few weapons unobtainable through crafting, making them feel special compared to swords or bows. This rarity gives them a mythic quality, as though they are relics of the drowned themselves. For players who finally obtain one, the trident feels like a trophy earned through persistence. Its obscurity lies in both its drop mechanics and its uniqueness, making it one of Minecraft's most mysterious and coveted weapons. An obscure fact about phantoms is that their spawning depends directly on the player's sleep habits. Phantoms appear only if the player has gone 3 nights or more without sleeping, adding a hidden punishment system that many players first discover by surprise. The obscure detail is that the longer one avoids sleep, the larger and more numerous the phantoms become, turning neglect into escalating danger. This mechanic encourages balance, reminding players that rest is as important in-game as in real life. The system ties into a subtle theme. Pushing too hard without pause leads to consequences. Many players are startled the first time eerie screeches echo in the night sky, never realizing they triggered the event through their own choices. The phantom's existence as a reminder of rest makes it one of Minecraft's most obscure yet symbolic mobs, blending gameplay with quiet wisdom. Another obscure aspect involves pandas, which have hidden personalities determined when they spawn. Some pandas are playful, Others are lazy, and rare aggressive pandas even fight back when provoked. The obscure detail is that these personalities are not just cosmetic, they influence behavior, from playful pandas rolling around to sick pandas sneezing. The genetic system hidden within pandas also allows traits to be inherited, creating a breeding mechanic richer than most mobs. This obscure feature transforms pandas into one of the most lifelike creatures in Minecraft, reflecting diversity and individuality. Many players never notice the subtleties, assuming all pandas behave the same. Yet those who spend time observing realize each panda feels unique, as though the bamboo forests hide a living, breathing community. This detail shows Minecraft's care in adding depth to even the most whimsical mobs, hiding layers of personality in the code. An obscure and sometimes startling fact lies in Evoker's unique attack, the ability to summon fangs that erupt from the ground. Few hostile mobs wield such magical powers, making the Evoker stand out during Woodland Mansion raids. What is obscure is that Evokers will also cast a special spell if they see a blue sheep. In this rare scenario, the Evoker changes the sheep's color to red, a hidden reference to Minecraft's earliest days. This Easter egg is obscure and playful, nodding to the game's long history. Most players never see it, as the conditions are unlikely, making it a hidden treasure of trivia. The Evoker's role as both a deadly foe and a keeper of obscure secrets reflects how Illagers are coded with quirks that go far beyond combat. They feel like beings with rituals and hidden knowledge, making them one of Minecraft's most mysterious adversaries. An obscure quirk exists with Guardians, the spiny fish-like creatures found in ocean monuments. When defeated, Guardians sometimes drop fish as though they were ordinary sea creatures, yet they are not part of natural food chains. Even more obscure is their ability to attack through walls with beams of energy, bypassing what players consider safe defenses. Few realize that Guardians also take extra damage from axes, a mechanic that seems random but rewards experimentation. Elder Guardians, their larger counterparts, can inflict mining fatigue, adding to the sense of dread within monuments. These obscure features make ocean monuments among the most intimidating challenges, blending mechanical surprises with eerie atmosphere. Many players never learn all the quirks, relying instead on brute force, yet the Guardian's design is full of subtleties. They embody obscurity in motion, fish that are more machine than animal, with secrets lurking in their beams. Another hidden detail involves wolves. While taming them is common knowledge, few players realize that wolves can become hostile to skeletons without any prompting. Their natural enmity creates battles in forests, where wolves hunt skeletons relentlessly, chasing them down under the moonlight. This obscure behavior makes wolves valuable allies, as they actively clear out one of the most common nighttime threats. Another obscure fact is that wolves' collars can be dyed, allowing for subtle customization of one's pack. These tiny touches create emotional bonds, turning wolves from simple companions into trusted family members within the game. Many players overlook these details, yet they transform the experience of adventuring. Wolves are not only pets but protectors, coated with obscure loyalties and instincts that bring warmth to the often lonely world of survival. Their hidden traits make them enduringly popular, a bridge between mechanic and companionship. An obscure feature about wither skeletons is that they have a rare chance of dropping their skulls, items required to summon the wither boss. The drop rate is notoriously low, leading players to farm countless skeletons for the needed pieces. The obscure twist is that enchantments, such as looting, can improve the odds, but even then, the grind remains. This rarity gives the wither its mythic feel, as though summoning it requires effort and ritual. Another hidden fact is that wither skeletons are taller than normal skeletons, meaning they cannot pass through the same spaces. Clever builders use this trait to design traps and farms. These obscure mechanics combine to make wither skeletons not just enemies, but essential stepping stones toward one of Minecraft's most powerful battles. Their presence in fortresses is both a curse and a blessing, embodying the obscure balance between difficulty and reward. Finally, an obscure feature involves villagers struck by lightning. Instead of dying, they transform into witches, a hidden mechanic that shocks those who first witness it. This obscure event ties into the game's theme of transformation and unpredictability, showing how even peaceful mobs can become dangerous under the right conditions. It also adds weight to thunderstorms, turning weather from background detail into a force of change. Players who protect their villagers with roofs or lightning rods do so not only for safety, but to preserve their community from corruption. The witch conversion is obscure because it happens rarely, often surprising players in survival worlds where storms feel routine. Yet it adds drama, reminding players that nature's power can alter the very fabric of their villages. It is one of those obscure touches that give Minecraft its mythic texture, where lightning can spark both awe and tragedy. An obscure quirk of the blaze, the fiery guardian of nether fortresses, is that it has a unique vulnerability to water-based attacks. While blazes are immune to fire and lava, they take damage from snowballs, which deal surprising effectiveness. This odd mechanic turns a playful item into a powerful weapon in the harshest biome. Many players never think to bring snowballs into the nether, making the discovery both obscure and delightful. Another obscure trait is that blazes generate smoke particles even when not attacking, giving them a constant aura of menace. Their fireball attacks, launched in bursts, make fortresses some of the most dangerous places to explore. Yet knowing their hidden weakness changes the dynamic entirely, turning a feared mob into something players can counter creatively. The blaze embodies obscurity, both intimidating and secretly fragile, a reminder that knowledge can transform how we face challenges. An obscure and eerie detail about silverfish is that they hide inside certain stone blocks found in strongholds and extreme hills. When disturbed, they break free and call nearby silverfish to swarm, overwhelming the player. What is obscure is that these blocks look nearly identical to regular stone, requiring careful observation to spot the difference. Many players have been startled by an infestation breaking loose during mining, unaware they triggered it themselves. Another obscure aspect is that silverfish are the only mobs naturally found in stronghold portal rooms, adding to their association with the end. They feel like guardians of forbidden places, small but relentless. Their behavior of summoning others makes them disproportionately dangerous, turning what seems minor into a real threat. Silverfish represent obscurity in plain sight, ordinary stone hiding an extraordinary menace, waiting for the inattentive miner to uncover a swarm. Another obscure fact lies in the magma cube, the fiery cousin of the slime. Like slimes, magma cubes split into smaller versions when defeated, but their mechanics hold subtle differences. They are immune to fire and lava, hopping effortlessly through pools that would consume others. An obscure detail is that even the smallest magma cubes deal damage upon contact, unlike slimes, which lose their ability to harm once reduced in size. This makes them deceptively dangerous, as players may underestimate their threat. Their drops, magma cream, are essential for brewing fire resistance potions, creating a link between their environment and their loot. Few players stop to consider the symbolism. Magma cubes thrive where others cannot, and their essence becomes a tool to endure fire. These obscure ties show how mobs reflect their biomes, embedding meaning in mechanics. The magma cube, obscure and underestimated, embodies resilience through fire. An obscure and unsettling quirk involves the endermite. This tiny mob has a rare chance of spawning whenever a player throws an ender pearl. The obscure connection suggests that ender pearls, tied to endermen, may carry fragments of mysterious parasites within them. Endermites are hostile, attacking players despite their size, yet they despawn after a short while, making them fleeting dangers. Few players encounter them regularly, as the chance of spawning is low. Another obscure fact is that endermen themselves attack endermites on sight, creating an unexplained hostility between the two. This hidden rivalry hints at lore connections, as though endermites are enemies of their larger cousins. For many, this obscure detail remains unnoticed, overshadowed by the utility of pearls. Yet once discovered, the endermite becomes a symbol of hidden lore, a tiny clue in the vast tapestry of Minecraft's mysteries. An obscure detail about polar bears is their treatment of cubs. Adult polar bears are normally neutral, but they become hostile if players approach their young. This obscure behavior mirrors real-world instincts, adding realism to a creature in a blocky world. Few players expect such protective aggression, making the first encounter startling. Another obscure fact is that polar bears can swim effortlessly, moving quickly through icy waters, yet they have no practical drops beyond fish. This makes them more symbolic than functional, guardians of snowy biomes rather than resources to be farmed. Their obscurity lies in their quiet presence, standing watch in frozen landscapes with little interaction beyond defense. Polar bears embody the hidden beauty of Minecraft, where some mobs exist not for utility but for atmosphere, their obscure mechanics adding depth to the cold silence of the tundra. Another obscure feature involves pillagers and their crossbows. Unlike skeletons with bows, pillagers must reload after each shot, an animation that leaves them briefly vulnerable. This detail makes raids more dynamic, as enemies cannot attack endlessly without pause. An obscure twist is that pillagers can sometimes spawn with enchanted crossbows, making their shots unexpectedly powerful. Another obscure fact is that pillagers can patrol in groups, wandering far from outposts, making encounters feel random and surprising. Their constant presence outside villages creates tension, as though danger lurks just beyond sight. Yet their reload mechanic reminds players that even enemies have weaknesses to exploit. This obscure balance of strength and vulnerability makes pillagers a unique addition to the illager family, weaving depth into their role as marauders. They symbolize persistence, a constant reminder of conflict in the world, while hiding their quirks in small, easily overlooked animations. Finally, an obscure and chilling fact concerns ghasts. These massive floating creatures emit cries that are actually based on recorded sounds of a cat. This obscure design choice adds a haunting, distorted innocence to their terrifying presence in the Nether. Few players know that their cries are tied to a real pet, making each encounter strangely emotional. Another obscure feature is that gas fireballs can be reflected with a well-timed strike, turning their attacks against them. This mechanic transforms combat into a game of precision, where patience and timing overcome overwhelming size. The rarity of gas tears, their primary drop, ties into brewing potions of regeneration, connecting their eerie existence with healing. This obscure duality makes them unforgettable creatures that terrify yet provide the means to recover. Ghasts, obscure in both design and behavior, remain one of Minecraft's most hauntingly poetic creations. An obscure feature about bats is that they serve almost no mechanical purpose, yet their behavior hides small surprises. Bats spawn in dark areas, often fluttering silently until disturbed. Few players realize that bats hang upside down when idle, adding realism to their design. Another obscure fact is that bats are programmed to avoid players, making them purely atmospheric rather than interactive. Their squeaks, soft and faint, give caves an eerie life that would otherwise feel empty. Despite lacking drops or utility, bats embody the obscure beauty of Minecraft's atmosphere. Not everything exists to be harvested. They remind players that the world can hold creatures simply for mood, filling caves with movement and sound. Many players never pay close attention to them, yet bats are quiet storytellers of darkness, fluttering symbols of mystery that serve as companions to solitude deep underground. An obscure and often overlooked mob is the stray, the icy cousin of the skeleton. Unlike their warmer counterparts, strays shoot arrows tipped with slowness, a hidden mechanic that can catch unprepared players off guard. This status effect makes combat harder in snowy biomes, turning an otherwise routine fight into a unique challenge. The obscure detail is that strays only spawn in certain cold regions, giving them a geographical identity tied to the frozen world. Another subtle touch is their distinct rattling sound, slightly different from skeletons, reinforcing their identity. Many players never fully recognize the difference beyond appearance, missing the obscure mechanics that make them special. Strays prove that even minor variations of mobs carry unique traits, adding depth to biomes and rewarding those who notice the details. They are obscure in both presence and effect, subtle reminders of danger lurking in the snow. Another obscure quirk lies in Vindicators, the axe-wielding illagers found in woodland mansions. Vindicators are already fierce foes, capable of high melee damage, but their obscurity shines in their hidden Johnny Easter egg. If renamed with a name tag reading Johnny, the Vindicator becomes hostile to all mobs, not just players and villagers. This obscure reference nods to a famous line from a horror film, though many players miss it entirely. Watching a renamed Vindicator attack everything in sight feels both comedic and chaotic, turning a dangerous foe into an agent of chaos. The obscure Easter egg highlights Minecraft's playful side, where developers slip in cultural nods for those who experiment. Vindicators, already obscure due to their mansion exclusivity, gain a second layer of mystery through this hidden feature, making them one of the strangest and most memorable illagers in the game. An obscure and surprising mechanic involves creepers and cats. Creepers, the iconic enemies of Minecraft, are universally feared for their silent approach and explosive attacks. Yet many players never realize that creepers are scared of cats and ocelots, avoiding them instinctively. This obscure detail transforms how villages can be defended. Placing cats strategically ensures that creepers keep their distance. The mechanic may stem from cats' reputation as hunters of pests, though the connection is never explained outright. What makes this detail obscure is how rarely it is observed naturally, since cats usually roam near villages rather than open fields where creepers lurk. The revelation that the game's most feared mob has such a simple fear feels whimsical and satisfying. Creepers' fear of cats is one of those obscure details that adds humor to the game, flipping expectations and reminding players that even the scariest foes have vulnerabilities. An obscure twist lies in the rabbit's foot, one of the rarest mob drops in the game. Rabbits themselves are already quick and elusive, making them difficult to hunt consistently. The rabbit's foot, however, has a very low chance of dropping, turning it into a prized item for brewing potions of leaping. The obscurity lies not only in its rarity but also in its symbolic meaning, as rabbits' feet are considered lucky charms in real life. Few players ever collect enough to notice the connection, making it one of the more hidden nods within Minecraft's design. The item serves a practical role while also carrying cultural weight, blending game mechanics with folklore. The obscurity of the rabbit's foot ensures that only dedicated or fortunate players experience its value, making it one of the most quietly significant rare drops in the game. Another obscure fact involves iron golems and their ability to naturally spawn in villages. Many players know that golems protect villagers, but the mechanics behind their spawning are obscure. Villagers themselves summon golems when enough of them are present, creating defenders organically. This detail gives villages a sense of agency, as though they can call for help in times of need. Another obscure aspect is that golems can be healed with iron ingots, a mechanic often overlooked. This ability reinforces their bond with the material they are crafted from, blending lore with utility. Few players take advantage of this, letting wounded golems remain cracked and damaged instead of restoring them. These obscure details highlight Minecraft's emphasis on community and guardianship, turning golems into more than just mobs. They are protectors woven into the fabric of village life. Their quiet mechanics remain one of the game's hidden treasures. Finally, an obscure and rare mob is the brown mushroom. While most mushrooms are red, there is a tiny chance for one to appear in brown, either naturally or when a red mushroom is struck by lightning. This obscure variation feels almost mythical, as though the storm transforms the familiar into something new. Brown mushrooms carry unique traits. When given flowers, they produce suspicious stew, with effects tied to the flower type. This mechanic adds layers of mystery and utility, making them one of the most interesting obscure mobs in Minecraft. The rarity of encountering one makes the experience unforgettable, often turning it into a story players share for years. Brown mushrooms embody obscurity at its finest, hidden, rare, and magical, bridging everyday farming with the unpredictable power of storms. Their existence reminds players that the world always has surprises waiting beyond the horizon. An obscure fact about shulkers is that their projectiles do not simply deal damage but inflict levitation, a status effect unlike any other. This mechanic causes players to float helplessly into the air, often leading to dangerous falls when the effect wears off. What is obscure is that these projectiles track their targets, slowly bending around corners and obstacles. The shulkers' behavior makes end cities more perilous than they first appear, turning their quiet towers into arenas of chaos. Another obscure detail is that shulkers camouflage themselves by closing their shells, blending perfectly with surrounding blocks. Many players overlook them entirely until it is too late. These mechanics combine to make shulkers some of the most unique mobs in Minecraft, blending obscurity with danger. They are guardians of the end, unpredictable and strange, reflecting the alien nature of the dimension itself. Another obscure quirk concerns llamas, the quirky companions introduced alongside wandering traders. While llamas are often seen as decorative, they hide unique mechanics. They can form caravans, following each other automatically when leashed, allowing players to transport goods in style. An obscure detail is that llamas can be equipped with carpet instead of saddles, and the design of the carpet changes their decorative appearance. This customization is rarely used, yet it allows players to give individuality to their herds. Another obscure mechanic is that llamas spit at hostile mobs to defend themselves, often surprising players who expect them to be passive. Their odd mixture of charm and utility makes them one of Minecraft's more overlooked mobs. Llamas embody obscurity through their quirks, half-pack animal, half-guardian, and quietly customizable companions for those who take the time to learn their hidden traits. An obscure and unsettling mob is the phantom, tied directly to the player's sleep patterns. Beyond their well-known nightly swoops, there is an obscure mechanic. Phantoms drop, phantom membranes, items essential for repairing elytra. This makes them both nuisance and necessity, linking sleeplessness with flight. Another obscure detail is that phantoms burn in sunlight, just like zombies and skeletons, reinforcing their ghostly nocturnal nature. Few players know that cats will gift phantom membranes as a morning gift if they sleep near them, creating a gentle counterbalance to avoiding the mobs altogether. This obscure interaction ties cats, sleep, and flight together in unexpected ways. Phantoms may feel punishing, but their hidden role in progression reveals them as part of a cycle of rest, risk, and reward. Their obscurity lies in these interconnections, small systems woven together beneath the stars. An obscure fact about piglins is their love of gold, which shapes their every behavior. While most players know piglins can be bartered with by tossing gold ingots, few realize they will also pick up and admire any gold equipment lying around. Piglins equipped with golden armor become distracted, sometimes ignoring combat in favor of their obsession. Another obscure twist is that players wearing gold armor are treated as allies, at least temporarily, giving piglins a unique social mechanic. This behavior is obscure because it feels more complex than typical hostile mobs, almost like a culture built around precious metal. Piglins remind players that the Nether has its own society, not just mindless enemies. Their obscure quirks, part greed, part ritual, create stories within the fiery depths, turning gold into more than a resource. In piglin culture, it becomes survival, status, and obsession all at once. Another obscure mob is the stray cat, which spawns in villages and carries a hidden mechanic. Cats scare away creepers and phantoms simply by existing nearby. This obscure detail makes them powerful protectors, though many players only see them as decorative pets. Another obscure fact is that cats bring morning gifts when players sleep, sometimes offering string, feathers, or even rare phantom membranes. These behaviors make cats both atmospheric and functional, tying them to themes of comfort and companionship. Few realize how deeply coded their instincts are, from curling up on beds to meowing when players fish. Cats' obscure roles elevate them from pets to quiet guardians, blending warmth with survival. They embody one of Minecraft's most charming principles, that friendship itself can carry hidden power. In their quiet, subtle ways, cats protect players from dangers most never even realize are being kept at bay. An obscure and rare phenomenon involves skeleton horse traps. During thunderstorms, a skeleton horse may appear seemingly harmless, standing alone in the rain. However, when approached, it triggers lightning, summoning skeletons riding additional skeleton horses, fully armed with enchanted bows. This obscure event transforms a quiet scene into an ambush, one of the rarest encounters in the game. Many players never witness it, as it requires both weather conditions and chance. The obscure beauty lies in how cinematic the moment feels, lightning splitting the sky as enemies ride forth from nothing. Skeleton horse traps blur the line between environment and story, making storms feel dangerous in ways beyond creepers or zombies. Those who stumble upon one rarely forget it, adding it to their list of obscure memories that make Minecraft feel like a world alive with hidden drama and secrets. Finally, an obscure detail about bees is their ability to carry pollen visually on their bodies. After visiting flowers, bees return to their hives dusted with tiny specks, an obscure animation many players overlook. Another obscure fact is that bees pollinate crops as they fly past, speeding growth in subtle ways. Their sting, while dangerous, results in their own death, mirroring real-world biology. This obscure mechanic makes bees both delicate and powerful, guardians of natural balance. Many players treat them as decorative mobs, never realizing their quiet role in farming efficiency. Their buzzing presence turns fields into living ecosystems, with obscure layers of interaction hidden in every flight. Bees embody Minecraft's philosophy of small details adding life to the world. Their obscurity lies not in their rarity, but in how easy it is to miss the depth they bring to farms and flowers alike. An obscure fact about dolphins is that they can boost the player's swimming speed when nearby. This mechanic, called Dolphin's Grace, activates when swimming close to them, making underwater travel much faster. Many players never notice this detail, assuming their sudden speed comes from sprinting mechanics. Another obscure trait is that dolphins guide players toward shipwrecks and underwater ruins if fed raw fish, turning them into natural explorers' companions. These hidden behaviors make dolphins more than decorative. They are guides, helpers, and playful spirits of the sea. Few take advantage of their abilities, leaving them underappreciated compared to other mobs. Yet for those who know, dolphins transform ocean exploration into something magical. Their obscure mechanics remind players that the ocean is alive with allies as well as threats, adding a layer of depth to the game's watery biomes that goes far beyond their surface beauty. Another obscure mob is the zombie villager, which appears when villagers are attacked and infected by zombies. The obscure mechanic here is that zombie villagers can be cured by using a splash potion of weakness followed by a golden apple. This process transforms them back into villagers, often with discounts on trades as a reward for saving them. Many players stumble on this mechanic accidentally, unaware that zombified villagers can be redeemed. The obscure beauty of this feature is that it turns tragedy into hope, allowing entire villages to be restored even after devastation. The rarity of the process makes it feel ceremonial, almost like a rite of healing. Few mobs in Minecraft embody such duality, tragedy on one hand, redemption on the other. This obscure fact makes zombie villagers a symbol of resilience, hidden within the broader story of survival and rebuilding. An obscure and often misunderstood mob is the piglin brute, introduced as a tougher counterpart to ordinary piglins. Unlike their cousins, piglin brutes cannot be distracted by gold. They are unrelentingly hostile, attacking players no matter what. This obscure distinction often catches players by surprise, especially those who wander into bastions wearing gold armor, expecting safety. Piglin brutes embody a hidden danger, enforcing the idea that not all mobs share the same rules. Their presence makes bastions some of the most treacherous structures in the Nether, as they hit harder and cannot be bargained with. Another obscure detail is that piglin brutes never spawn with enchanted weapons, yet their raw strength makes them formidable regardless. They are designed as gatekeepers, guardians of treasure that resist exploitation. This obscure fact ensures players approach bastions with caution, treating them as challenges to be earned rather than looted lightly. Another obscure fact concerns foxes, which can spawn with items already in their mouths. A fox may appear carrying berries, feathers, or even rare objects such as emeralds. This hidden mechanic gives foxes a sense of personality, as though they forage and scavenge independently of the player. Another obscure trait is that foxes sleep curled up during the day, tucking their tails over themselves in an endearing animation that many players overlook. They are skittish and fast, making them difficult to tame, but when bred with sweet berries, they produce kits that trust the player. Their obscure behaviors, hoarding, sleeping, and scavenging, make them one of the most lifelike creatures in Minecraft. Many mobs exist purely for function, but foxes blur the line between gameplay and atmosphere. Their obscure quirks add warmth to taiga forests, making them feel alive with quiet stories hidden in every shadow. An obscure and humorous mechanic involves parrots imitating nearby hostile mobs. When close to enemies like zombies or creepers, parrots mimic their sounds at a higher pitch. This obscure feature makes parrots both entertaining and surprisingly useful, as they can act as early warning systems in dangerous caves. Many players never realize the purpose of the mimicry, assuming it is just a playful detail, yet parrots reflect the jungle's vibrancy, both colorful and noisy, filled with echoes of hidden threats. Another obscure aspect is that parrots will dance when music discs are played, adding levity and joy to builds. These behaviors make parrots some of the most whimsical mobs in Minecraft, embodying obscurity through their quirks. They are companions that amuse, protect, and charm all at once, tiny mirrors of the world's dangers and delights. Their mimicry remains one of the most unexpected and obscure features of the game. Another obscure mob is the wandering trader's llamas, which, when provoked, spit at attackers in defense of their master. This obscure behavior is often overlooked, as players focus on the trader's offers rather than the llamas themselves. Yet their spitting creates comic relief in tense situations, especially when aimed at hostile mobs. An obscure detail is that llamas retain hostility for a surprisingly long time, continuing to spit until their target is gone. Though their attacks are weak, the animation gives them charm, turning them into unlikely defenders. Many dismiss wandering traders and their llamas as nuisances, but their obscure mechanics create moments of humor and surprise. They embody the game's tendency to hide life in unexpected corners, where even a background mob can reveal personality. The spitting llamas stand as obscure treasures, quirky companions tied to one of Minecraft's most overlooked characters. Finally, an obscure fact involves the Elder Guardian's mining fatigue effect. When triggered, a ghostly image of the Guardian appears on the screen, startling players before slowing their mining speed drastically. This obscure mechanic creates tension inside ocean monuments, forcing players to prepare carefully before entering. The visual effect is unique, breaking the fourth wall with a sudden apparition that many never forget. Another obscure detail is that Elder Guardians are the only source of sponges, blocks capable of absorbing water. This ties their obscurity to utility, as defeating them becomes the only way to obtain such a valuable resource in survival. Elder Guardians embody obscurity through atmosphere and mechanics, turning underwater monuments into foreboding challenges. Their ghostly curses and rare rewards make them one of Minecraft's most enigmatic mobs, proof that obscurity often lies at the heart of the game's most memorable adventures. An obscure mob interaction occurs with polar bears, creatures often overlooked in snowy biomes. While they may appear neutral, adult polar bears become hostile if the player approaches their cubs. This obscure mechanic introduces a rare form of parental protection in Minecraft, where most mobs act independently. Another detail is that polar bears swim gracefully through icy waters, a unique animation not shared by other large mobs. They drop fish when killed, subtly linking them to their aquatic environment. Yet despite these traits, polar bears are among the least interacted with creatures, offering no utility beyond atmosphere. This obscurity makes them a hidden gem for explorers who pause to observe behavior rather than seek resources. They stand as guardians of the frozen world, embodying both majesty and mystery. Their obscure mechanics remind players that even in snowy silence, life defends and endures. Another obscure mob detail involves skeleton horses, which only appear through rare skeleton horse traps triggered during thunderstorms. When a player approaches the lone horse, lightning strikes, spawning a group of skeleton horsemen. This event is obscure because it combines weather, proximity, and chance, making it one of the rarest ambushes in Minecraft. Many players may never witness it naturally, instead learning about it through guides or videos. Skeleton horses themselves are unique. They can be tamed, ridden, and even equipped with saddles without needing food or armor. Unlike other horses, they cannot breed, making each one acquired feel singular and precious. This obscure encounter merges drama and rarity, transforming storms into moments of unexpected spectacle. Skeleton horses serve as reminders that obscurity in Minecraft often takes the form of fleeting encounters, events tied to time and chance rather than predictable farming. An obscure fact about evokers, one of the hostile illager types, is their unique ability to summon fangs in attack patterns. These spectral jaws emerge from the ground, snapping shut in sequences that resemble teeth rising from shadows. Few players notice that the patterns can vary, forming lines or circles depending on distance and target. Another obscure detail is that evokers are the only source of the Totem of Undying, an item that grants a second chance at life. This makes them both terrifying and desirable opponents. Evokers also cast spells that summon vexes, ghostly creatures immune to most hazards, creating layers of obscurity in battle. Their abilities blend mysticism and strategy, setting them apart from ordinary mobs. Many casual players never face them, since woodland mansions and raids are rare. For those who do, evokers become symbols of obscure power, blending danger with rare rewards. Another obscure mob mechanic involves silverfish, tiny creatures that hide within stone blocks in strongholds, mountains, or extreme hills. When disturbed, they emerge suddenly, startling even seasoned players. The obscure twist is that attacking one silverfish can awaken others nearby, leading to swarms that overwhelm unprepared adventurers. This hidden collective behavior transforms harmless mobs into dangerous threats. Another obscure fact is that silverfish blocks visually resemble normal stone, making them nearly indistinguishable until broken. Their obscurity lies in deception, blending into the world unnoticed until it is too late. While they drop little of value, their true role is to unsettle and challenge, reminding players that hidden dangers lurk even in familiar blocks. Silverfish embody obscurity through surprise, acting as guardians of strongholds and secrets, proving that small creatures can cast long shadows in the world of Minecraft. An obscure and eerie mob is the Phantom, which spawns only when players neglect sleep for several in-game days. This mechanic ties directly to the bed system, punishing those who ignore rest. Many players never realize the connection at first, assuming phantoms appear randomly. Their obscure behavior adds a layer of realism, as if the game itself insists on balance between work and rest. Phantoms swoop from the sky with piercing cries, their glowing eyes visible against the night. They drop phantom membranes, used to repair elytras or brew potions of slow falling, making them obscure yet valuable. This rare mechanic adds tension to the night sky, transforming neglect into consequence. Phantoms remind players that obscurity often hides in simple systems, waiting to be discovered. They are both nightmare and necessity, a mob born from oversight, casting shadows across sleepless nights in Minecraft. Another obscure mob detail involves hoglins, hostile beasts of the nether. While dangerous, They can be transformed into zombified hoglins or zoglins if brought into the overworld. This obscure transformation occurs automatically, much like piglins turning into zombified piglins. Zoglins behave differently from their living counterparts, attacking nearly every creature in sight, even those they never encounter in the nether. Their obscure hostility makes them chaotic additions to the overworld, rare to see since few players attempt to drag hoglins across dimensions. This transformation highlights how obscurity in Minecraft often emerges from experimentation, testing what happens when boundaries are crossed. Hoglins and zoglins embody this obscure relationship, representing the strange results of dimension travel. They remind players that hidden within the nether's hostility lies potential for discoveries few will ever witness firsthand. Finally, an obscure fact about striders, the passive mobs of the nether's lava oceans, is that they shiver when outside of lava. Their shaking animation conveys discomfort, a detail many overlook. Striders can be ridden with a saddle and controlled using a warped fungus on a stick, making them essential for safe lava travel. The obscure twist lies in their dependency. Without lava, they move slowly and appear pitiful, reinforcing their connection to the nether's molten environment. Another obscure trait is that baby striders can ride atop adult ones, creating charming stacks of wobbling creatures. While many players rely on boats or bridges, striders offer obscure elegance, gliding across lava seas in ways no other mob allows. They embody both fragility and resilience hidden within the hostile nether. Their obscure quirks make them unforgettable companions for those daring enough to tame the lava itself. An obscure mob detail comes from the rabbit, often overlooked despite its quiet charm. Rabbits spawn in various biomes, but the rarest of all is the so-called killer bunny, a hostile variant with red eyes. This obscure mob was removed from natural spawning in newer versions, but it can still be summoned with commands, making it something of a legend. Another obscure detail is that rabbits drop rabbit hide, which can be crafted into leather, and rabbit's foot, used for brewing potions of leaping. These drops are rare, and many players never bother hunting rabbits, leaving them as background animals. Their obscure quirks, from the almost mythical killer bunny to their delicate drops, make them subtle treasures in the game. Rabbits embody obscurity by hiding value behind fragility, bouncing through meadows unnoticed until a careful observer uncovers their small but meaningful place in Minecraft's world. Another obscure mob is the drowned, which are essentially underwater variants of zombies. While common in rivers and oceans, their obscurity comes from the rare chance of spawning with a trident. This makes them one of the few renewable sources of the trident, a powerful weapon that cannot be crafted. Many players never encounter a trident-wielding drown naturally, making the discovery feel extraordinary. Another obscure mechanic is that drowned holding nautilus shells can appear, tying them to the conduit system, an advanced underwater utility. Their ability to survive both on land and in water adds unpredictability, especially in coastal builds. Despite their zombie origins, drowned carry unique drops and behaviors that separate them from their surface cousins. They embody obscurity by connecting aquatic exploration to rare weapons and items, ensuring that even ordinary-seeming mobs hold secrets for those willing to dive beneath the surface. An obscure fact surrounds the blaze, found only in nether fortresses. Their ability to shoot fireballs is well known, but the obscure mechanic is that they spawn only from blaze spawners, or rarely in fortress corridors, tying their existence tightly to exploration. Another obscure element is that blazes drop blaze rods, the only source for brewing stands and blaze powder, making them critical for reaching the end. This connection is often overlooked by newer players, who may not realize how many game mechanics tie back to blaze farming. Their obscure detail is that blazes take damage from snowballs, items typically considered harmless. This gives players an unexpected weapon against one of the Nether's most dangerous mobs. Their fiery existence, balanced by such a fragile weakness, embodies obscurity perfectly, power undone by simplicity. Blazes remind us that hidden within every hostile encounter are small secrets waiting to be discovered. Another obscure mob mechanic lies in the mule, a hybrid produced by breeding a horse and a donkey. Unlike their parents, mules cannot breed further, making each one unique and non-renewable. This obscure limitation is subtle, and many players assume they behave like horses or donkeys in every way. Mules combine the best of both, the ability to carry chests like donkeys and the speed and jumping potential of horses. Their rarity is tied to their hybrid nature, making them overlooked compared to pure horses. Another obscure detail is that mules have no distinct wild spawns, existing only through player effort. They embody obscurity by rewarding experimentation and curiosity, offering utility to those who take the time to mix familiar elements. Mules are reminders that not all treasures are found in the wild. Sometimes they are created through small, thoughtful acts of discovery and care. An obscure and unusual mob is the illusioner, which never spawns naturally in the game. It exists only through commands, serving as a sort of secret, unfinished illager variant. The illusioner wields a bow and uses unique abilities like summoning duplicates of itself to confuse players. This obscure mob was introduced during testing but never implemented fully, leaving it as a hidden curiosity. Many players are unaware it even exists, as it does not appear in survival gameplay. Its obscure nature has given it a legendary status, often discussed in the same breath as Herobrine or other myths. The illusioner embodies obscurity by existing on the edge of reality, present in code, but absent in ordinary play. For those who summon it, the illusioner offers a glimpse of what could have been, a reminder that the world of Minecraft is full of unfinished, hidden stories. Another obscure mob fact concerns guardians, the smaller cousins of elder guardians. They patrol ocean monuments with their laser beam attacks, but their obscure feature lies in their spikes, which extend when threatened. These spikes damage attackers, making melee combat against them dangerous. Another obscure detail is that guardians target squid as well as players, a rare inter-mob hostility. Their drops include prismarine shards and crystals, essential for sea lanterns, tying their obscurity to light itself. While elder guardians often overshadow them, ordinary guardians embody obscurity through their mechanics, blending offense and defense in a way few mobs do. Many players avoid monuments altogether, leaving guardians unexplored and their hidden quirks unnoticed. They represent obscurity by dwelling in places many fear to enter, their secrets buried beneath waves, waiting for only the bravest adventurers to uncover. Finally, an obscure mob detail involves endermites, which spawn when a player throws an ender pearl. This mechanic surprises many, as the chance is small and the mob itself is weak. Endermites despawn after a short time, but their obscure role lies in their relationship with Endermen, who are hostile toward them. This hostility can be exploited in Enderman farms, where Endermites act as bait. Another obscure detail is that Endermites were once considered for more significant roles, though they remain niche. Their brief, fleeting existence makes them one of the most obscure mobs in the game, often forgotten entirely. Yet their subtle role in farming and their strange link to teleportation give them a quiet importance. Endermites embody obscurity by existing in moments of chance, small flashes of mystery that appear and vanish before most players even notice. An obscure mob fact centers on the witch, often encountered in swamp huts or during raids. While witches are recognized for throwing potions, many players do not realize how complex their behavior is. They automatically drink specific potions depending on the situation, such as fire resistance if burning, water breathing when underwater, or healing when injured. This makes them more adaptive than nearly any other hostile mob. Another obscure detail is that witches are immune to certain potion effects that would normally harm others, highlighting their mastery of brewing. They also have a rare chance of dropping potions, though usually the drops are mundane items like sticks. Their obscure mechanics make them dangerous opponents and rare sources of potion-related materials. The witch embodies obscurity by combining intelligence and unpredictability, standing as a reminder that not all hostile mobs are simple-minded enemies. Another obscure mob is the stray, a snowy biome variant of the skeleton. Strays shoot arrows tipped with slowness, a unique ability that sets them apart from their warmer climate counterparts. This obscure mechanic is rarely encountered because strays only spawn in icy and snowy biomes, which many players avoid. Their distinct, ragged appearance gives them a haunting presence, as if frozen by the environment itself. Unlike ordinary skeletons, their arrows offer a tactical disadvantage to the player, making even a single encounter memorable. Their rare spawning conditions and unusual attacks make strays an obscure threat, tied directly to geography. Another obscure detail is that strays sometimes drop tipped arrows of slowness upon death, offering players a rare and otherwise difficult to craft item. They embody obscurity through their connection to the cold, rare, and chilling reminders that each biome hides unique dangers waiting to be discovered. An obscure mob tied to aquatic environments is the glow squid. While they appear serene, their obscure feature lies in the glowing ink sacs they drop, which can be used to craft signs and item frames that glow in the dark. Another obscure detail is that the glow effect on the squid itself is purely visual. They do not actually emit light, like a torch or glowstone. This distinction often confuses players who expect them to brighten underwater caves. Glow squids also face hostility from axolotls, which naturally hunt them, creating an obscure predator-prey relationship. Despite their simplicity, glow squids gained fame through a community vote, making their existence a symbol of player choice. Their obscurity comes not from mechanics alone, but from the debates and discussions surrounding them. Glow squids embody obscurity by reminding us that even the simplest mobs can inspire strong opinions and surprising uses in Minecraft. Another obscure mob is the zoglin, the zombified version of the hoglin. Unlike their living counterparts, zoglins cannot be bred or fed, and they attack almost every mob in the game, including ones normally left alone. This obscure hostility makes them chaotic forces if brought into the overworld. The transformation happens automatically when a hoglin spends time outside the nether, creating an obscure example of dimension-based behavior. Zoglins are rare to see because most players do not bother dragging hoglins through portals, making them obscure curiosities. Their aggressive nature and inability to return to normal form highlight the consequences of crossing boundaries in Minecraft. Another obscure detail is that they cannot be leashed, further limiting player control over them. Zoglins embody obscurity through their unnatural existence, mobs out of place that serve as reminders of the strange transformations possible when worlds collide. An obscure mob detail involves the wandering trader, who spawns randomly and disappears after a short time. His obscurity lies not only in his unpredictable arrival but also in the randomness of his trades, which sometimes include items otherwise difficult to acquire early in the game, such as saplings from distant biomes or coral blocks. Another obscure aspect is that he always appears accompanied by two trader llamas, who defend him by spitting at attackers. Many players dismiss the trader as useless, focusing only on common trades, but his obscure potential lies in rare opportunities hidden among randomness. His limited lifespan in the world makes him feel transient, a visitor rather than a fixture. The wandering trader embodies obscurity by offering fleeting chances for advancement, small windows of opportunity that can change the course of survival for those who pay attention. Another obscure mob is the magma cube, the nether's fiery counterpart to the slime. Unlike slimes, magma cubes split into smaller versions when killed, continuing the fight until they reach their tiniest size. The obscure mechanic is that even the smallest magma cubes still deal damage, unlike slimes of equivalent size. This distinction makes them more dangerous, especially in groups. They drop magma cream, an item vital for brewing fire resistance potions, connecting them to survival in the nether's hostile environment. Their spawning in bastions and lava-filled areas emphasizes their obscurity, as few players linger long in such dangerous places. Another obscure trait is that magma cubes can jump surprisingly high, making them unpredictable opponents. They embody obscurity by taking a familiar mob concept and twisting it into something more dangerous, proving that even small differences can create entirely new challenges in Minecraft. Finally, an obscure mob detail lies with the parrot, particularly their vulnerability. While parrots charm players with their ability to perch on shoulders and mimic mob sounds, an obscure mechanic is that feeding them cookies instantly kills them. This was added as a cautionary reflection of real-life toxicity, where chocolate is dangerous for birds. Many players are unaware of this and accidentally harm their companions, making it one of the saddest obscure details in the game. Parrots also respond to music discs by dancing, a playful animation that contrasts with their fragility. Their mimicry of hostile mobs serves as a useful warning system, but it is their delicate nature that defines their obscurity. Parrots embody the balance between joy and caution, small, colorful friends who remind players to treat virtual companions with care, echoing lessons that extend beyond the pixelated jungles into real life. An obscure mob detail involves the piglin, creatures of the nether who trade through a mechanic called bartering. While many players know that piglins can be distracted with gold, an obscure fact is that their trades vary depending on the version of Minecraft being played. For instance, at one point, piglins could provide ender pearls at higher rates, a crucial detail for speedrunners. Their hostility also fluctuates. Piglins attack unless players wear at least one piece of gold armor. Another obscure mechanic is that piglins hunt hoglins in groups, displaying a form of organized behavior not common among mobs. Their duality as both merchants and warriors adds to their obscurity, making them unpredictable allies or enemies. Piglins embody obscurity by blending survival with culture, acting as both traders and predators, proof that even hostile mobs can hold hidden layers of personality and utility in the nether's fiery chaos. Another obscure mob is the shulker, which hides inside its shell, often blending seamlessly into end structures. Their primary attack is a levitation-inducing projectile, an obscure mechanic that sends players floating upward, often to dangerous heights. This ability makes them both frustrating and unique, as no other mob manipulates gravity in the same way. Shulkers also have obscure spawning mechanics. They only appear in end cities, making them a rare encounter. Their most valuable drop is the shulker shell, essential for crafting shulker boxes, which revolutionize storage. An obscure trait is that shulkers can teleport short distances when damaged, a defense mechanism that keeps battles unpredictable. They embody obscurity by being both guardians and innovators, tying danger directly to one of the most useful tools in the game. Few mobs balance frustration and reward as effectively, making shulkers a perfect example of obscure brilliance in Minecraft. An obscure mob detail lies with the mule's counterpart, the donkey. While donkeys resemble horses in appearance and behavior, their obscure distinction is that they can carry chests, allowing players to expand storage on the go. This mechanic is often overlooked in favor of faster horses, but donkeys embody utility over speed. Another obscure aspect is that donkeys, like mules, cannot wear armor, further distinguishing them from horses. Despite these limitations, their role as mobile pack animals is invaluable for adventurers traveling long distances. Their rarity is not in spawning, but in appreciation. Many players ignore them entirely. Donkeys represent obscurity not through rarity of appearance, but through rarity of use, a quiet option overshadowed by flashier alternatives. They remind us that sometimes the simplest companions hold the greatest potential, offering understated value that reveals itself only to those who take the time to understand their hidden strengths. Another obscure mob is the bat, often seen flitting through caves but rarely interacted with by players. Bats have no drops, no attacks, and no practical use, making them one of the most obscure mobs in the entire game. Yet they embody atmosphere, filling caves with life and subtle sound effects that prevent them from feeling empty. An obscure trait is that bats spawn only in darkness and at specific altitudes, disappearing when conditions are too bright. Their seasonal Easter egg is even more obscure. During October, bats spawn more frequently as a nod to Halloween. While they serve little gameplay purpose, their obscurity lies in their symbolism. They remind players that not every creature must be useful. Some simply exist to enrich the world's feeling of depth and realism. Bats embody obscurity by being ever-present but easily ignored, silent keepers of the underground world. An obscure mob detail involves the villager Nitwit, a green-robed variant with no profession. Many players dismiss them as useless, but their obscure nature lies in their existence as a deliberate reminder of randomness. Nitwits cannot trade and will not gain jobs from workstations, making them outliers within village society. However, they still perform daily routines, such as gossiping and sleeping, adding to the world's sense of realism. Their obscure charm lies in their role as filler, characters who represent imperfection in an otherwise structured system. Another obscure fact is that nitwits still count toward a village's population, meaning they can indirectly affect golem spawning. Nitwits embody obscurity through subtle storytelling, reminding players that not every villager is destined for greatness. They are background characters in the grand tale of Minecraft, rare personalities that create texture in the tapestry of village life, even without practical function. Another obscure mob is the Vex, summoned exclusively by evokers during battles. Vexes are small, ghost-like creatures that can fly through walls and attack players with tiny swords. Their obscure detail is that they ignore many of the game's physical rules, making them some of the most challenging mobs to fight in close quarters. They also have a limited lifespan, eventually dying on their own, which ties their existence directly to the spell that created them. This obscure link between life and summoning makes Vexes feel eerie, as though they are mere extensions of the evoker's will rather than independent beings. Their high-pitched sounds and unpredictable movement make them disorienting enemies, Vexes embody obscurity by bending the rules of Minecraft's world, fleeting phantoms that strike quickly before fading back into nothingness, leaving players to wonder at the mysteries of magic within the illager ranks. Finally, an obscure mob fact concerns the Ghast, a massive floating creature of the Nether, known for its haunting cries. While their fireball attacks are infamous, an obscure mechanic is that players can deflect these projectiles with any weapon, tool, or even their bare hands, turning the Ghast's own attack back upon it. Another obscure fact is that Ghasts are surprisingly timid, fleeing if players approach closely. Their drops of ghast tears are essential for potions of regeneration, making them valuable despite their intimidating appearance. An obscure aspect of their sound design adds to their mystique. The cries of ghasts are actually based on distorted recordings of a sleeping cat. This strange origin enhances their otherworldly feel. Ghasts embody obscurity by being both terrifying and fragile, symbols of the Nether's eerie loneliness, their wails echoing through lava seas like ghostly lullabies in the firelit night. An obscure mob detail lies with the ocelot, once tameable into cats but later changed to remain wild. Before the change, feeding them fish would create pet cats, but now they remain elusive, representing untamed jungle life. The obscure part of ocelots is that they can scare away creepers and phantoms, behaviors they still share with cats, yet few players realize their protective role. Another obscure mechanic is that ocelots trust players when fed fish, though they never become pets in the same way as cats. Their rarity is also tied to their biome, as jungle spawns are less common, making ocelots one of the most obscure creatures to encounter naturally. They embody obscurity through transition, a mob whose mechanics shifted over time, leaving them as quiet reminders of Minecraft's evolving history, still stalking the undergrowth with golden eyes and an air of mystery. Another obscure mob is the mule's counterpart in obscurity, the horse with skeleton trap origins. Skeleton horsemen, as mentioned earlier, appear during thunderstorms, but an obscure mechanic is that the skeleton horses left behind after battle can be tamed. Unlike ordinary horses, skeleton horses do not need saddles to be ridden once tamed, making them unique mounts. They also never drown, which ties them to aquatic exploration in subtle ways. Their rarity lies not only in their spawning event but in their unusual mechanics, making them a hybrid between decoration and practical use. Many players see them as curiosities rather than functional companions, but their obscure qualities give them value to collectors. Skeleton horses embody obscurity by offering rewards hidden behind danger, spectral steeds that feel like treasures snatched from storms, lingering long after the thunder has faded into the distance. An obscure mob mechanic involves the panda, a rare animal found only in bamboo jungles. Pandas carry genes that determine their personality, an obscure detail that many players never notice. Personalities include lazy, playful, aggressive, and even worried, each influencing behavior. For instance, playful pandas tumble and roll, while aggressive pandas fight back more often. Another obscure trait is the extremely rare brown panda, a color mutation that appears with very low odds, making it one of the rarest passive mobs in the game. Pandas can also sneeze, with baby pandas producing an animation that sometimes surprises nearby adults. These obscure traits make pandas feel more alive than most mobs, with personalities that extend beyond simple coding. They embody obscurity by showing that even within the same species, individuality and rare traits emerge, turning bamboo jungles into hidden sanctuaries of charm and discovery. Another obscure mob detail concerns the drown's counterpart, the husk, a desert variant of the zombie. Husks are obscure because their attacks inflict hunger, a debuff rarely seen elsewhere in the game. Unlike ordinary zombies, husks do not burn in daylight, making them persistent threats in deserts. Their obscure design ties directly to environment, emphasizing the idea that even familiar mobs take on new forms in different conditions. Another obscure aspect is that husks are slightly taller than normal zombies, preventing them from fitting into one-block-high gaps, a subtle detail many overlook. They drop the same loot as zombies, but their environmental adaptations and unique debuff make them obscurely powerful. Husks embody obscurity by blending familiarity with subtle changes, turning deserts into harsher, more dangerous landscapes where even the sun cannot protect travelers from shambling threats beneath the relentless heat. An obscure mob often forgotten is the cat, despite its popularity as a pet. Their obscure detail is that cats spawn naturally in villages and will keep creepers at bay, acting as natural defenses. Another obscure aspect is that cats bring players gifts when they wake from sleep, items such as string, feathers, or even phantom membranes. This mechanic is often overlooked, as many players sleep without checking surroundings afterward. Cats also have multiple skins, including rare variants tied to specific updates, like the texture inspired by Jelly, a real cat belonging to a community member. Their obscure gifts and protective nature elevate them beyond decoration, making them quiet guardians and companions. Cats embody obscurity by weaving themselves into daily routines, small protectors who bring charm and gifts in equal measure, turning ordinary villages into cozy homes filled with watchful eyes and gentle purrs. Another obscure mob is the mushroom, which spawns only on mushroom islands. Their obscure feature lies in their ability to provide mushroom stew when milked with a bowl, a mechanic unique to them. Another obscure trait is that feeding them flowers and then using shears transforms them into brown mushrooms, a variant with different stew-producing abilities. Brown mushrooms can provide suspicious stew with effects tied to the flour used, creating obscure opportunities for creative brewing. Mushroom islands themselves are obscure biomes, immune to hostile mob spawns, making mushrooms doubly rare as both environment and creature. Their obscure design ties survival, food, and rarity together in whimsical fashion. Mushrooms embody obscurity by blending utility with charm, surreal cows that feel like magical secrets hidden in remote corners of the world, grazing peacefully where danger cannot reach them. Finally, an obscure mob detail involves wolves, among the first tameable companions in Minecraft. While many know they can be tamed with bones, the obscure fact is that wolves attack any mob their owner attacks, except for creepers. This selective aggression adds a layer of strategy, though many overlook it. Another obscure aspect is that wolves whimper when injured, a sound that signals their health status, reminding players to heal them with meat. Wolves also visibly lower their tails when hurt, another subtle mechanic often missed. Baby wolves can also spawn naturally, though rarely, appearing in packs with adults. Despite their familiarity, wolves carry obscure details that deepen their connection to the player. They embody obscurity by blending loyalty with vulnerability, companions who enrich the survival experience not through rarity of appearance but through the hidden richness of their behaviors and bonds. An obscure mob detail surrounds the snow golem, a creature that players can create by stacking 2 snow blocks and placing a carved pumpkin on top. Many players see them only as novelty decorations, but the obscure mechanic is that snow golems throw snowballs at hostile mobs, distracting enemies even if the damage is minimal. Another obscure fact is that they leave trails of snow behind them when walking on certain blocks, creating natural paths of white. In warmer biomes, Snow golems slowly melt, a fragile feature that reminds players of their dependency on cold environments. With shears, players can remove the pumpkin, revealing a hidden, smiling face, a detail many overlook. Snow golems embody obscurity by blending whimsy, fragility, and functionality, existing as protectors that can be created by hand. They are reminders that even simple creations can hold hidden charms and unexpected uses. Another obscure mob is the zombie horse, which, like the illusioner, does not spawn naturally in survival gameplay. These eerie mounts exist only through commands, making them inaccessible to most players. Their obscure presence lies in their unfinished role, coded into the game but left unused. Unlike skeleton horses, zombie horses cannot be tamed in survival, though they share the same skeletal frame with a greenish tint. They embody obscurity by representing possibilities that were never fully realized, fragments of features that linger in the game's code. Many players stumble upon their existence only while browsing wikis or experimenting with commands. Zombie horses add a ghostly presence to Minecraft, an obscure reminder of unfinished ideas and abandoned plans. They are curiosities more than features, offering glimpses of paths not taken, spectral echoes that haunt the edges of the game's endless world of possibility. An obscure mob mechanic involves the villager cleric, one of the more mystical professions among villagers. Clerics offer trades involving ender pearls, redstone, and glowstone, items tied to magic and other dimensions. Their obscurity lies in their role as bridges between everyday village life and the mystical systems of the game. Another obscure trait is that clerics use brewing stands as workstations, linking their identity to potions. Many players overlook clerics, preferring farmers or librarians for more practical trades, but the cleric's offerings make survival more balanced, particularly in hard-to-reach places where endermen are scarce. Their obscure nature is tied not to their appearance, but to their potential, hidden in their overlooked trades. They embody obscurity by serving as quiet conduits to the game's deeper mechanics, villagers who quietly connect survival with enchantments, offering knowledge and resources for those patient enough to seek them. Another obscure mob detail involves axolotls, creatures added to promote aquatic exploration. Beyond their charm, axolotls carry obscure mechanics. They attack drowned, guardians, and elder guardians, assisting players in underwater combat. Another obscure feature is their ability to play dead when injured, tricking enemies into ignoring them for a short time. Axolotls also provide a regeneration effect to players who participate in combat alongside them, making them both companions and protectors. The rarest of all axolotls is the blue variant, appearing with extremely low odds when breeding. This obscure rarity makes them prized among collectors, often celebrated when finally obtained. Axolotls embody obscurity by hiding immense utility beneath their adorable appearances, tiny allies that make oceans safer and brighter. They transform water into a stage of companionship and survival, carrying both beauty and mystery into the deepest parts of Minecraft's aquatic landscapes. Another obscure mob fact concerns the villager's iron golem protector. While most players know golems defend villages, an obscure detail is that they are not invincible. Golems slowly take damage from battles, visible through cracks in their bodies. Feeding them iron ingots repairs them, though many players overlook this mechanic. Another obscure detail is that golems can spawn naturally in villages without player construction if enough villagers and beds exist. Their presence turns villages into self-sustaining communities, reflecting a hidden depth of design. Golems also pick up hostility toward players who attack villagers, an obscure but fitting consequence of betrayal. They embody obscurity by blending strength with vulnerability, protectors who must also be protected. Their hidden mechanics remind players that even the strongest allies carry fragility, making them enduring symbols of guardianship and care in the sprawling survival world. Another obscure mob detail is tied to the Elder Guardian, already known for inflicting mining fatigue. An obscure feature is that Elder Guardians can see players through blocks of water, meaning hiding behind walls does not prevent their detection. This makes ocean monuments uniquely threatening, as the Guardian's awareness extends beyond normal vision rules. Another obscure trait is that Elder Guardians drop wet sponges, the only renewable source of this block in survival. Sponges absorb water in a way no other block can, tying Elder Guardians directly to underwater survival strategies. Their ghostly curse mechanic, with the sudden jump scare of their face appearing on screen, makes them one of the most memorable obscure mobs. They embody obscurity through their unique blend of intimidation and utility. Guardians of treasures hidden beneath the sea, testing both courage and preparation in equal measure. Finally, an obscure mob detail lies in villagers struck by lightning. Instead of simply dying, they transform into witches, adding danger and unpredictability to thunderstorms. This obscure mechanic ties weather to transformation, turning peaceful characters into hostile ones. It adds weight to the role of lightning rods, which can protect villages from this fate. Another obscure aspect is that witches created this way retain none of the trades or roles they once had, symbolizing total loss. Many players first encounter this event by accident, often losing valuable villagers in the process. This hidden mechanic underscores the fragility of villages, where a single storm can change the balance of safety and danger. Villagers struck by lightning embody obscurity by linking weather, chance, and transformation. Quiet reminders that even the sky above can alter the fabric of the world, leaving loss and mystery in its wake. An obscure mob detail involves slimes, which spawn only in specific chunks of the world, known as slime chunks. This obscure mechanic is hidden deep in the game's code, making slime farming a challenge for players who do not use external tools to locate these areas. Slimes also spawn more frequently in swamps during full moons, another obscure condition rarely noticed. When killed, they split into smaller versions until they reach their tiniest size, which still drop slime balls but deal no damage. Slime balls are essential for sticky pistons, leads, and magma cream, making slimes obscurely important for technical builds. Despite their bouncy appearance, their spawning rules make them one of the trickiest mobs to understand fully. Slimes embody obscurity by hiding critical resources behind rare mechanics, forcing players to learn patience and observation to uncover the slimy secrets of the blocky world. Another obscure mob fact concerns villagers, who appear simple at first glance but carry a surprising depth of hidden mechanics. Villagers follow daily schedules, sleeping at night, gossiping during the day, and using workstations to maintain their professions. An obscure detail is that villagers can remember players who have harmed them, raising the prices of their trades in retaliation. Conversely, saving villagers from zombie attacks and curing zombie villagers lowers their prices, reflecting gratitude. Another obscure feature is the ability for villagers to gossip, spreading reputation data among themselves, something most players never notice. These hidden systems make villages feel alive, functioning like small societies with rules of their own. Villagers embody obscurity by carrying unseen layers of memory, economy, and community beneath their simple exteriors, turning what appear to be ordinary characters into complex actors in Minecraft's unfolding survival drama. Another obscure mob is the Hoglin, a creature of the Nether known for its aggression. While many players know Hoglins drop pork chops and leather, an obscure fact is that they are terrified of warped fungi. Placing warped fungi in the Nether can create safe zones where Hoglins refuse to tread. This obscure detail provides players with a subtle survival trick, balancing the mob's raw strength with a simple, natural weakness. Another obscure mechanic is that Hoglins transform into Zoglins when brought into the overworld, losing their ability to be bred and becoming hostile toward nearly all mobs. Their dual nature highlights the obscurity of cross-dimensional behaviors in Minecraft, where the environment itself shapes survival. Hoglins embody obscurity by being both threat and resource. Relentless beasts whose secrets are revealed only through careful observation and experimentation with the strange flora of the Nether. An obscure mob detail surrounds Endermen, iconic creatures of the End. While their ability to teleport and pick up blocks is well known, the obscure fact is that Endermen become neutral in the rain, teleporting constantly to avoid damage from water. Their hostility is also tied uniquely to eye contact, an obscure mechanic that makes them both predictable and unsettling. Another obscure detail is that they drop ender pearls, linking them directly to teleportation items that mirror their own abilities. They are also hostile toward endermites, suggesting some hidden lore connection that is never explained outright. Endermen embody obscurity through their behaviors, blending fear, power, and mystery. Many players underestimate how much of the game's progression ties back to these tall, silent figures. They are living puzzles, guardians of teleportation and strangeness, standing as one of the most enduringly obscure and enigmatic mobs in Minecraft's history. Another obscure mob is the Phantom, tied directly to player behavior. Beyond their nightly swoops, Phantoms have obscure mechanics connected to their drops. Phantom membranes are essential for repairing elytra, making the creatures one of the only renewable sources of this rare material. Another obscure feature is that cats sometimes bring phantom membranes as gifts after the player sleeps, providing an indirect alternative to facing phantoms directly. Their cries pierce the night sky, and their presence only after several days of neglecting sleep makes them unique among mobs. This obscure system is subtle punishment for overwork, a gameplay mechanic with symbolic weight. Phantoms embody obscurity by being both feared and necessary, creatures born from neglect whose hidden rewards tie survival to balance. They represent how even hostile mobs can serve a greater purpose, woven into the rhythms of exploration and rest within Minecraft's expansive world. Another obscure mob detail involves villagers' golem protectors. While most players know iron golems defend villagers from threats, few realize how their hostility works. Attacking a villager or the golem itself lowers the player's reputation, causing all golems in the village to become hostile. Reputation is obscure because it is hidden, invisible to the player, yet it influences interactions deeply. Another obscure fact is that golems can be healed with iron ingots, restoring their health and repairing the cracks that appear as they take damage. Many players never use this mechanic, letting golems deteriorate over time. Their spawning is also tied directly to the number of villagers and beds, creating a hidden system of protection. Iron golems embody obscurity by being both guardians and symbols of accountability, reminding players that actions carry unseen consequences in the quiet lives of blocky communities. Finally, an obscure mob detail involves the parrot, a creature filled with whimsy. Beyond their colorful appearance, parrots carry obscure mechanics that link them to danger and delight. They mimic the sounds of nearby hostile mobs, sometimes warning players of threats before they are seen. This mimicry, however, can also startle players, as the cries of a creeper or zombie may echo through the jungle unexpectedly. Another obscure trait is that parrots will perch on the player's shoulder when tamed, traveling along without slowing movement. They also dance to the sound of music discs, a playful feature that few players take the time to watch. Yet parrots also hide a dark, obscure mechanic. Feeding them cookies instantly kills them, reflecting real-world toxicity. This cautionary feature makes them fragile, both in code and symbolism. Parrots embody obscurity by weaving joy and warning together, companions that delight yet demand care. An obscure mob interaction involves dolphins, playful ocean dwellers often overlooked by players focused on mining or fighting. While many know dolphins grant a speed boost called Dolphin's Grace when swimming nearby, fewer realize they will actively seek out shipwrecks and underwater ruins. Feeding them raw cod or raw salmon causes them to swim toward treasure, guiding the player subtly through the oceans. Another obscure feature is that dolphins will chase dropped items, sometimes carrying them off in their mouths before letting them go again. Though they cannot be tamed, their behaviors make them feel alive, like guardians of the sea. Sadly, they also need air, and if trapped underwater for too long, they suffocate. Dolphins embody obscurity by blending utility and charm, playful creatures who quietly offer guidance and companionship, rewarding gentle observation in the vast watery world. Another obscure mob is the illusioner, a creature hidden within the game's code that never appears naturally in survival mode. This unused illager mob casts blindness spells on players and can summon illusions of itself, confusing attackers. Though never fully implemented, the illusioner remains summonable through commands, making it one of the most obscure entities in Minecraft. It wears blue robes, unlike the gray garb of other illagers, suggesting it was meant to stand apart as a magical figure. Another obscure fact is that illusioners wield bows rather than melee weapons, relying on deception and distance instead of brute force. Despite its absence from gameplay, the illusioner has fueled speculation about what role it might have played in raids or village defense. The illusioner embodies obscurity as a ghost of development, an unfinished concept preserved in code, whispering of paths not fully taken. Another obscure mob interaction involves wolves, among the oldest companions in Minecraft. When tamed with bones, they become loyal protectors, but obscure mechanics govern their behavior. Wolves will attack skeletons on sight, an instinct coded to reflect natural predator-prey dynamics. They also growl and bare their teeth when hostile, a visual cue often unnoticed by players. Another obscure fact is that wolves can be dyed indirectly, as their collars change color with the use of dyes, allowing customization. Their health is indicated by the angle of their tails, a subtle system many players miss. Wolves cannot be bred without meat, and if neglected, they remain in their untamed state indefinitely. Wolves embody obscurity by hiding layers of personality and utility within their simple design. They remind players that even the most common companions carry secrets waiting to be discovered in their pixelated loyalty. Another obscure mob detail surrounds silverfish, tiny pests often found inside infested stone blocks. When one is released, it calls others nearby, creating swarms that overwhelm unsuspecting players. Their obscure connection lies with strongholds, where infested blocks are more common. Another obscure mechanic is that silverfish can merge back into stone when idle, effectively disappearing into walls and lying in wait for their next chance to strike. This makes them one of the few mobs able to manipulate blocks. Their association with end portals adds a hidden narrative weight, as if they guard the secrets of the end itself. Despite being weak individually, their ability to swarm creates genuine danger. Silverfish embody obscurity by blending subtly into the environment, enemies that are as much part of the terrain as they are independent creatures, merging danger with architecture in ways that unsettle explorers. Another obscure mob is the wandering trader, a character both helpful and puzzling. This trader appears randomly near players, accompanied by llamas, and offers trades that often seem overpriced or unusual. The obscure aspect is that the trader sometimes sells rare items unavailable elsewhere, such as coral blocks or nautilus shells. This makes them unexpectedly valuable despite their reputation for poor deals. Another obscure feature is that the trader and llamas can become invisible at night by drinking potions of invisibility, a defensive behavior most players do not notice until startled by floating leads in the dark. Their llamas will also spit at hostile mobs, adding a quirky layer of protection. Though often dismissed as annoying, the wandering trader embodies obscurity by balancing frustration with hidden opportunity, reminding players that even the most unexpected visitors can carry rare treasures worth seeking. Another obscure mob interaction involves bats, creatures that appear mostly as background ambiance. Though harmless, bats have obscure spawning rules, appearing only in dark areas below a specific height. They serve no direct purpose, yet they add atmosphere to caves, fluttering in ways that make environments feel alive. An obscure mechanic is that bats are attracted to jack-o'-lanterns during Halloween events, hinting at a playful seasonal touch. They also hang upside down from ceilings when idle, vanishing suddenly when disturbed. Their lack of drops makes them easy to ignore, but their presence is a reminder that not every creature must serve utility. Bats embody obscurity by existing in quiet corners of the game, companions of darkness whose role is mood rather than resource, subtle echoes of nature tucked into blocky caverns where silence and shadows reign. Finally, an obscure mob detail involves the evoker, the most dangerous of the illagers. Beyond summoning vexes and using fang attacks, evokers hide a special mechanic tied to their drops. On defeat, they always drop a totem of undying, one of the most valuable items in the game. Yet another obscure fact is that evokers will turn blue sheep into red sheep if encountered during raids, a quirky reference to a classic game Easter egg. This rare interaction has no practical use, yet it highlights the playful side of Minecraft's design. Evokers embody obscurity by blending lethality with whimsy, balancing the terror of their magical powers with lighthearted secrets. Facing them is a test of skill, but uncovering their quirks rewards curiosity. They remind players that even the deadliest foes can carry surprises tucked away in code, waiting to be discovered. An obscure mob fact involves the Strider, the lava-walking creature of the Nether. While most players know that saddling a Strider allows lava travel with the aid of a warped fungus on a stick, few notice that Striders shiver and change color when they leave lava. This obscure detail shows their dependence on heat, making them fragile outside their element. Another obscure mechanic is that baby Striders can ride atop adult Striders, a detail that mirrors piglets and adds life to the fiery environment. Players can even lead Striders with warped fungus planted near them, though this behavior is rarely used. Striders embody obscurity by being both transport and symbol, gentle creatures who thrive where others cannot, revealing hidden softness in the most dangerous biome. Their design reminds players that every world holds companions, even in seas of lava that seem barren and unforgiving. Another obscure mob is the Pillager, whose mechanics hide layers of complexity. Pillagers spawn during raids, carrying crossbows, but their obscure behavior includes patrols wandering randomly across the world. These patrols sometimes spawn near players unexpectedly, making them dangerous even far from villages. An obscure detail is that pillagers can break their crossbows through repeated use, leaving them weaponless yet still hostile. Another obscure mechanic is that killing a raid captain grants the bad omen effect, which triggers raids when entering villages. Few players notice that pillagers' gossip mechanics link them indirectly to villagers, as raids affect villager trades when completed successfully. Despite their reputation as simple attackers, pillagers embody obscurity by serving as both threat and bridge to hidden systems like raids, reputation, and loot. Their presence adds tension to exploration, making the overworld feel less safe and more alive with conflict. Another obscure mob interaction involves polar bears, a neutral creature rarely encountered because of its snowy biome habitat. While polar bears are passive toward players, they become aggressive if cubs are nearby, a protective behavior that reflects real-world instincts. An obscure fact is that polar bears swim more quickly than most mobs, making them surprisingly effective predators in icy waters. They drop raw fish when killed, but beyond this, they have little practical use, adding to their obscurity. Another hidden feature is their roaring animation, which feels dramatic despite carrying no direct gameplay impact. Polar bears embody obscurity by being atmospheric guardians of frozen landscapes, creatures that few players spend time studying due to their remote spawning. They represent the quiet side of Minecraft's design, where even rarely seen mobs carry touches of personality that enrich the world, making tundras and icy oceans feel alive. Another obscure mob is the Vex, summoned by evokers during raids. Vexes are small, ghostly mobs with the ability to fly through blocks, making them unpredictable enemies. An obscure detail is that Vexes carry miniature iron swords, yet they deal damage far greater than expected from their size. Another obscure mechanic is that Vexes have a limited lifespan, eventually fading away even if not killed by the player. Few realize that Vexes occasionally make sounds similar to silverfish, adding to their unsettling aura. They are one of the only mobs able to phase through walls at will, creating panic during combat. Vexes embody obscurity by blending fragility with lethality, temporary beings whose danger far outweighs their size. Their existence reinforces the magical chaos of illager raids, reminding players that some threats defy both walls and expectations, lingering as eerie echoes of hostile magic. Another obscure mob interaction involves foxes, clever creatures found in taiga biomes. Foxes can pick up and carry items in their mouths, even holding swords or enchanted items dropped nearby. An obscure fact is that if a fox carries a totem of undying, it can actually use it when killed, reviving itself just like a player. Foxes also occasionally spawn with items already in their mouths, such as berries or feathers, reflecting their playful scavenger behavior. Another obscure detail is that foxes can leap high into the air to pounce on prey, adding a layer of realism to their design. They are nocturnal, sleeping during the day with tails wrapped around themselves. Another subtle behavior often overlooked. Foxes embody obscurity by being both cute and clever, playful survivors who surprise players with hidden mechanics, blending charm with utility in a subtle way. Another obscure mob is the zombified piglin, which appears when piglins cross into the overworld. Unlike piglins, zombified piglins are neutral unless provoked, at which point they swarm aggressively. An obscure fact is that they retain gold swords, but no longer barter, making them remnants of their former selves. Another obscure detail is that zombified piglins can form massive groups, attacking collectively, a mechanic that punishes careless players. They also spawn naturally in the Nether, reminding players of the strange transformations tied to dimension crossing. An obscure mechanic is that baby zombified piglins can ride chickens, forming rare chicken jockeys in the fiery nether environment. Zombified piglins embody obscurity by being both relic and threat. Shadows of once barbed traders turned into unreasoning mobs. Their existence adds depth to the nether, showing how survival and danger are intertwined across dimensions in unexpected ways. Finally, an obscure mob interaction involves rabbits, one of the smallest and fastest creatures in Minecraft. While rabbits seem simple, obscure mechanics surround them. They drop rabbit hides, which can be crafted into leather, and rabbit's foot, an ingredient for potions of leaping, making them useful despite their small size. Another obscure fact is the killer rabbit, a hostile variant once included in the game but later removed. This rare mob would actively attack players, a playful reference to a famous film. Though unobtainable in survival now, the killer rabbit still exists in the code, summonable with commands. Another obscure detail is that rabbits can die from falling damage easily, reflecting their fragility. Despite their unassuming role, rabbits embody obscurity by hiding rare variants and useful drops within their small frames, surprising players who take time to notice them hopping through plains or snowy tundras. An obscure mob detail involves guardians, the hostile fish that inhabit ocean monuments. While players know them for their laser attacks, few realize that guardians have obscure defensive mechanics. They deal thorns-like damage when struck in melee, punishing close combat. Another obscure fact is that their eye tracks the player constantly, giving the unsettling impression of being watched even when they are not attacking. Guardians also occasionally swim toward the surface when not engaged, a behavior that makes them unpredictable. They drop prismarine shards and crystals, key ingredients for sea lanterns, but farming them requires elaborate underwater setups. Their existence ties directly to elder guardians, making them guardians in the literal sense of the monuments. Guardians embody obscurity by weaving atmosphere and hostility together, enemies whose very gaze unnerves explorers and whose hidden mechanics make the depths a challenging frontier. Another obscure mob is the mule, a hybrid created by breeding a horse and a donkey. While players often focus on horses for speed, mules carry obscure advantages. They can be equipped with chests like donkeys, combining storage utility with reasonable movement speed. Unlike horses or donkeys, mules cannot spawn naturally and must always be bred, making them obscure by rarity. Another obscure fact is that mules retain the unique traits of their parents, producing random variations in speed, health, and jump height. However, mules cannot reproduce further, reflecting real-world biology. This makes every mule a one-of-a-kind companion, valuable to players who appreciate utility over glamour. Mules embody obscurity by existing only through effort and intention, creatures hidden within the mechanics of breeding rather than the open world, rewarding those who take the time to explore deeper layers of animal husbandry. Another obscure mob interaction concerns drowned, the underwater variant of zombies. Beyond their hostility, drowned hide unique features. Some spawn carrying tridents, and those tridents can be dropped rarely, making drowned the only renewable source of this powerful weapon. Another obscure fact is that drowned can pick up nautilus shells, which are used in crafting conduits. They also occasionally rise from the depths carrying fishing rods, an oddity few players notice. Drowned conversion mechanics are obscure as well. If a regular zombie remains underwater long enough, it transforms into a drowned, complete with aquatic pathfinding. Their groaning underwater voices add atmosphere to oceans and rivers, making exploration tense. Drowned embody obscurity by combining utility, threat, and lore, bridging land and sea through their undead persistence, and showing how even basic mobs can evolve into something uniquely dangerous beneath the waves. Another obscure mob is the llama, best known for accompanying wandering traders. Yet llamas exist in the wild and hold their own obscure mechanics. Llamas can be tamed and equipped with carpets, each pattern depending on the dye used, allowing decorative flair unique to this mob. An obscure fact is that llamas can form caravans, following one another automatically when one is led, enabling efficient group transport. They also spit at hostile mobs, a comical but useful defense. Another obscure feature is that llamas have different strength values, determining how many inventory slots their chests provide, something many players overlook. Despite their utility, llamas cannot be saddled, reinforcing their role as pack animals rather than mounts. Llamas embody obscurity by blending whimsy and function, loyal carriers whose hidden features make them more than background companions, symbols of patience and playfulness in rugged landscapes. Another obscure mob detail involves shulkers, strange creatures inhabiting end cities. Shulkers disguise themselves as purple blocks, hiding in plain sight until they attack by firing levitation-inducing projectiles. An obscure fact is that shulkers can teleport short distances when damaged, making them elusive targets. They also reproduce uniquely. When two shulkers attack the same target, one can spawn another, creating new shulkers without traditional breeding. Their drops, shulker shells, are vital for crafting shulker boxes, portable storage containers that revolutionize inventory management. Another obscure detail is that their projectiles can curve toward the player, following paths unlike any other attack in the game. Shulkers embody obscurity by mixing stealth, persistence, and rarity, guardians of treasure that double as keys to advanced storage. They remind players that innovation often hides in the strangest creatures, waiting in the silent towers of the end. Another obscure mob is the parrot's nemesis, the ocelot. Once tameable into cats, ocelots now remain wild, reflecting changes in the game's updates. Obscure mechanics surround their behavior. They avoid players unless slowly approached, rewarding patience. They also scare away creepers, a trait shared with cats, but many players never notice this obscure benefit. Feeding them fish encourages trust, though they no longer transform into pet cats, making them companions in spirit rather than in mechanics. Another obscure feature is that ocelots spawn only in jungle biomes, making them rare by location. Their skittish nature means they often vanish before players fully appreciate them. Ocelots embody obscurity by being elusive shadows of the jungle, relics of earlier mechanics whose presence whispers of the game's evolving history, gentle reminders of patience in a world that rewards speed and resource gathering. Finally, an obscure mob detail involves skeleton horses, one of the rarest naturally occurring mobs in the overworld. They spawn during thunderstorms as part of a skeleton trap, where a lightning strike creates a skeleton horse that, when approached, summons skeleton riders. This obscure mechanic surprises many players, as it transforms a seemingly harmless horse into sudden danger. Skeleton horses are rideable without saddles once tamed, a unique trait. Another obscure fact is that they do not drown, making them ideal for water travel. Their eerie appearance and rarity make them symbols of mystery, often overlooked until experienced firsthand. Skeleton horses embody obscurity by blending elegance and menace, rewards of chance hidden within storms. They remind players that the skies themselves can change the world, delivering rare companions in sudden peril in equal measure. An obscure mob fact involves the Wither skeleton, haunting fortresses in the Nether. While players often battle them for the rare skulls needed to summon the Wither boss, few realize their obscure mechanics. Wither skeletons are taller than regular skeletons, making them unable to pass through spaces that skeletons can. They inflict the Wither effect with their attacks, a condition that darkens the health bar and steadily drains life. Their drop rate for skulls is notoriously low, but using looting enchantments increases the odds, an obscure detail essential for efficiency. Another obscure fact is that Wither skeletons are immune to fire and lava, reflecting their nether origins. They can also ride striders if spawned in the right conditions, though this is rarely seen. Wither skeletons embody obscurity by hiding vital progression items behind chance, patience, and danger, guardians of one of Minecraft's most destructive battles. Another obscure mob detail involves the Elder Guardian, a massive version of the Guardian found in ocean monuments. Elder Guardians not only attack with their beams but also inflict mining fatigue on players, making it nearly impossible to break blocks quickly while near them. This obscure mechanic ensures that raiding ocean monuments requires careful planning, such as bringing milk buckets to counteract the effect. Another obscure fact is that Elder Guardians never respawn, making them one-time challenges in each monument. Their drops include sponges, rare blocks that absorb water, unlocking entirely new building strategies. Another obscure feature is their powerful Thorns ability, which deals damage back to attackers, especially noticeable in melee combat. Elder Guardians embody obscurity by blending permanence and rarity, bosses of the deep who tie treasure directly to the mysteries of the sea, guardians whose secrets reward those willing to dive into danger. Finally, an obscure mob fact involves the rarest of villagers, the Nitwit. Nitwits are villagers with green robes who cannot take on professions, forever wandering without jobs. Many players assume they are broken or useless, but they serve obscure roles in Minecraft's village systems. Nitwits can still breed and contribute to population growth, though they will never offer trades. Their existence adds subtle balance to villages, preventing every villager from becoming a trading partner. Another obscure fact is that Nitwits follow daily schedules like other villagers, sleeping in beds and gossiping, but their green robes set them apart visually. They have no workstation interactions, highlighting the importance of diversity in village populations. Nitwits embody obscurity by being both overlooked and essential, part of the hidden design that keeps villages from becoming purely transactional spaces, reminding players that even idle characters carry purpose within the game's coded world.